to the victim group of the nation that you're entering. Because if not, you have to deal in righteousness, fairness, and true justice. So if there's no acknowledgement of what we've experienced and went through, or if people are saying, hey, we were affected too, then that means that now it's merit. Now it's we went through this too, or we came here with nothing and we had to work hard. They negate that our circumstances in this country aren't just we were formerly enslaved. No, there was a systematic barrier that was positioned against us as we tried to utilize merit and work as hard or even twice as hard or 10 times as hard as everyone else. So I don't know. I mean, because I'm really operating in the spirit and a sense of righteousness. So a lot of these conversations occur honestly because people are greedy, because people are opportunists, because people are selfish, and it's easy for them to say that they want to get theirs for them and not look at people like us who haven't had. And the reason why I look at the Jewish community specifically in this nation differently is because in the 1930s, when I was learning about Sears Roebuck and Black Americans being boxed out of white society to be able to purchase things in stores, the Jewish community started Sears as more of a sales magazine that would be sent out and delivered to people's houses, and you could basically buy your shit from the Jews. And in my head, I'm like, well, if the Jews have been persecuted, how were they able to establish businesses? I think about Julius Rosenwald and him putting that philanthropy money of Carnegie behind Booker T. Washington at the time in the late 1800s. And I'm like, well, if Jews have been persecuted like black people, how did they have all this money to be able to create these industries? And then you realize that they're telling you two different stories. Right, the Holocaust story is a convenient one because they don't even tell you in Germany at the time the Jews were in heavy control of a lot of resources, even in that area. Right, and this ain't to me to make it an anti-Jew room. We bigger than that. We on the spirit. It is to say that that community and how they position themselves as a victim community isn't based on a history of them being quote victimized, unless you believe they are the real Jews in the Bible, which I don't. Uh,
Yeah, and the whole point is for this individual to again to make it seem like black people are playing the victim. I have yet in my adult life, and even when I think about my childhood growing up, my parents pushed education. All the professional black people around us never had any victim mentality. If anything, they were going out of their way to try to encourage us that we could succeed. And I think to a certain degree, they did us a disservice because they went along with this mythological narrative that we lived in a post-racial society, and I believed it. I believed it because I saw G.I. Joe and I saw teamwork. I saw Star Trek and I seen teamwork and diversity. I seen Michael Jordan dunk a basketball. I could play with my friends, white, black, blue, green, purple, and we played Jordan versus Bird back in the day. I didn't care that Mario was Italian. So somehow, while our parents would teaching us whether it was just Christian values or just morality or to have at least a baseline of patriotism and a sense of camaraderie. They didn't teach us to be inferior, but they didn't teach us to be superior to anyone else. But meanwhile, this is how I feel. 1965 rolls around, white people, had a panic attack because they seen revolution was brewing, so they were kind of forced to capitulate a little bit, like I say, not necessarily make change, but make transformation. Buy a kit, change the outer appearance of the car, but still keep it the same. And the thing of it is the insidious thing is it's like a doctor told us we had aggressive cancer cells, which was overt, white extremists. But then you had these other cells that are not benign, but they're just not as aggressive. And that's just regular white supremacy. They'd be like, oh, we got rid of white extremists. You don't have to deal with the KKK. You don't have to deal with people outwardly saying all these things to you. Oh, and like you say, by the way, the Jews were persecuted too. And there's poor white people and there's women and there's midgets and there's LGBTQ people. They start bringing that on. All these people could be part-time minorities, get full-time benefits. And they keep bringing up, ironically, Jesus and Martin Luther King, saying to anesthetize us. But meanwhile, the cancer's spreading. So now in 2025, over the last 5 years, we realized, well, we got lied to. We had a misdiagnosis. They told us the cancer was in remission. And so we were functioning every day blissfully in ignorance, thinking that the cancer was in remission. And now we're seeing big ass tumors. So now we're sitting here trying to like play the little game the kids play, where they're just trying to hit the little beaver on top of the head. But like, oh, the problem's Trump. Oh, the problem's MAGA. Oh, the problem is religious persecution. Oh, the problem is intersectionality. Oh, the problem is black people need to stop doing the sexy red thing. Black people need to do this and that, the other. We need to do better. And like Neely Fuller says, if you don't understand racism, white supremacy, and how it works in all areas of people activity, it's only going to confuse you. And I think what it is when I hear you speak eloquently, and when I hear other people not just speak but teach, what it is it removes that decadent veil, and now we're able to see that, okay, we got tumors. We knew, they told us that cancer exists a long time ago, and now we're realizing it's not just cancer in our bodies and in our lymphatic system. It's this whole entire system. So the whole entire system, like I say now, Martin Luther King did not integrate us into a burning house, but we did integrate into a condemned building. And the only thing we can look back in history and see how the American Negro worked to try to renovate the building. So while we were renovating, and while we were cleaning up, and while we were trying to be a good steward of what God blessed us, and while we persevered and didn't play victim, because we moved forward and tried to work in the system. We got up every day and worked. We didn't even beat them over the head about reparations. The only reason why reparations even brought up, because it's like they're no different than Pharaoh in Egypt, where they're like, all right, you know what? I want y'all to make bricks without straw. Just because I want to be mean spirited, just because I fear genetic annihilation, just because I'm insecure, just because I'm starting to have doubts that maybe I'm not God. Wait a minute, God can bleed? Wait a minute, my authority can be challenged? Wait a minute, I'm not the only one that can use smoke and mirror in an illusions and be like, okay, I could turn a rod into a snake. You forget where your power comes from. You forget what Joseph did for Egypt, that you brought in people that because they were in covenant with the Most High, that's why your land was blessed. That's why you were able to survive the famine. So now that's why I say we're in the world, but not of it. We are foundational Black Americans. We are Americans through and through, but we're not a part of this Babylonian. See, the problem is America is a part of this white supremacy network. And I would damn near say between here, Israel, and the UK, that's like the headquarters of white supremacy. And everybody else is just working in an adoption agency. They're cooning, they're tap dancing. Respectful for everybody in this space, I'll tone it down to PG-13. They're professional white ass kissers. Y'all know I use a different phrase, but we won't shame anybody listening in the cheap seats, listening anonymously with their Ku Klux Klan robe on, still having the God complex, thinking that you can be omniscient and see what are the niggers talking about. What I'm talking about is you destroying yourself. Brother Talent, go ahead.
Let me ask this question. What is wrong with being a victim? I'm going to start there first. Is it your fault if you're a victim? Because we get into this weird conversation where Black Americans can't say that they're a victims of shit we've been a victim to. And because it's a benign neglect environment that we live in, and you're always going to have outliers, or we live within a caste system where there are going to be people who are not victims, right? There's some people who are not going to say that they have the same story as us, so they don't see this the same way, especially if you talk about people who didn't get here to the 1930s or the 1960s or the 1980s. If people been here from the very beginning, right, it would be a little hard to argue against the plight that we have. But if the majority of the society that we exist in America at 70% or more, I would argue maybe 90 or 85, are people who are not and have not been here since 1870, then there's no interest that they have to seeing us as victims because they too busy getting what they came to get. But at the same time, telling us don't have victim mentality because it's hard if you see us as a victim, right? It's like I'm not gonna step over you to advance myself for what I came here for if I know you've been here before me and the people who are giving me access are basically boxing you out, right? Because that's what we live in. We live in a reality where the system as it operates now keeps the Negro as the bottom caste, and in order for this thing to work, they got to sell another story to other people to then look at us and say, well, why aren't you guys working hard? You should
So
just work
so
harder.
so listen, from what I'm understanding, so basically what you're saying, and this is the metaphor come up in my mind. I used to always say for like the Democrats that it was dine and dash. They wanted Negroes to pay the bill. And they dine and dash. They help run up the bill. But for what you're describing, this is what I'm saying. It's like white folks coming to a restaurant, i.e., America. They run up a big bill, but they deflect from paying the bill to argue with you about whether or not they should leave you a tip. And the fact that you may want a tip on top of them paying what they should owe because they ran up the bill, they're trying to deflect. They're trying to dine and dash. You know what I mean? They're trying to be a deadbeat. They're like, "What do you mean? What do you mean? I ate all that lobster and asparagus? Don't talk about what I ate and the fact that you cooked it. I'm talking about your victim mentality of wanting to get a tip. You feel what I'm saying? Like in other words, they're trying to deflect from the fact that they actually do owe and that they get over. It's not like they didn't run up a tab.
I mean, I would say this instead of that, they hire people to work in the location and say, why y'all complaining? Y'all don't want to work hard, right? Because we don't often deal directly with the power, right? The power isn't just looking us in the face and saying, yeah, we enslaved y'all, yeah, we did this, we not doing nothing for y'all. Right, we deal with model minorities, we deal with tokenism, we deal with benign neglect, and we deal with this. America is the land of opportunity, so all you have to do is have merit and work hard. And you know, like I know, we've always had merit and always have had to work hard. And even in merit and working hard, we still were stifled and given the ass to kiss by the dominant society, which further makes me go into my bag of, so what is wrong with being a victim? And I'm not saying that we have to live in victimhood, but nigga, if we are victims of racism, white supremacy, and systematic economic sanctioning against our communities, then that's a victim. If we are victims of food deserts and red line communities and maternal health crises and mass incarceration and over policing, that makes a case for, hey, we are still current day victims because we're being victimized. And that shit has nothing to do with our effort and our merit, because as we are working hard and busting our ass, we are still being shot at. And I mean that not just I'm talking about by everybody, not police. I'm talking about we are still being attacked. I cannot get on this app and scroll down my page without some anti-black shit. I can't get on the internet and it ain't, yo, y'all Negroes or y'all Black Americans, y'all ain't this, y'all lazy, y'all need to work hard, y'all nothing but gangsters and rappers and basketball. It's like we are always surrounded by being attacked by everything. So at what point am I say, yo, I'm a victim of social media because every time I get on social media, it's a parade of motherfuckers saying that there's something wrong with me because I'm a Negro or because I'm Black. I live with my lady. I take care of my baby girl. I make good money and I live in a nice apartment. So I'm not your typical stereotypical concept, which is the majority of our community, but we still have to be victims of ideologies that are positioned to make us seem like we are less than. That's not victim mentality. If you ask me, I believe like we live in a vortex. I believe we live in a vortex that is controlled by quantum physics. We could start breaking this shit down scientifically, and there's an algorithm that we're stuck in because people will use our shit all the time and then say we're not victims. People will say, I got a story too. Look at me. Then you're like, and then not even that in politics in it, but just humanity. And hey, this is a class of people who were enslaved. Then after slavery, They did a compromise of 1877. Then they did segregation policies. Then when they were minding their fucking businesses, white people came to those neighborhoods with fucking crosses and burnt the buildings down and fucked they shit up. Then after that, they tried to fight to be integrated because they thought it was gonna be safer. Then when they integrated, they turned the shit to DI policies, open the doors to immigration, let everybody else in. So now Negroes ain't got shit, still ain't got shit, but we still working hard to get shit. And niggas will look at us and say, yeah, all you gotta do is just work harder. All you gotta do is just work harder. Robbie, you're not where you need to be because you just didn't work hard enough. Niggas would just skip everything that your father, your grandfather, your great grandfather, and including you in the community that you live in have experienced as a hardworking, able-bodied man, and it still will not be enough. So I don't think these are righteous conversations we're having. I don't think any of this is
brother
right.
Talent, you know what I think is insidious, and I wanted you to expand on this. So during segregation, were our tax dollars segregated? Even now, currently, when they say all this stuff about us per capita, they're allowed to play victim. So in a sense, we have been financing their comfort. We've been allowing them to be mediocre white people, and all they do is complain and play victim. You know, a freeloader doesn't stay with somebody that's not hardworking. They may deflect, right? They'd be like, you say, hey, you need to get a job. What are you talking about? You know, blah, blah, they got all this stuff to you know, saying to try to deflect. But at the end of the day, it's an oxymoron. If we were lazy, they wouldn't have put us on a plantation. And if we were violent, they wouldn't have like one overseer there with a rifle or a musket. You know what I'm saying? Talking about y'all need to stay in line. It's not in our nature to just kill without consequence, but it doesn't mean that we can't defend ourselves. So, if anything, like I said, all these laws and rules were written for them, brother Talent. They're the caveman that has had a rebranding campaign to try to convince us that they're not recycled white trash from Europe. You know, they're like Bill Bixby. If they stomp their toe, the caveman comes out. And that's why they will always throw the American Negro under the bus to save the Union. But I feel like the insidious thing is all this time, our tax dollars have pretty much, in other words, we're the people who need the most help. But we are sitting here having our tax dollars contribute to the pool, and you have all these people once again basically living off of our wealth. What do you think?
I think you're absolutely right. I think we do not kill for power, right? That's not historically been us, right? We ain't on construction sites snatching illegal immigrants off the site saying those jobs belong to black men, right? That's what the Europeans did to us in the 1910s, 20s, 30s, and even the early mid 1800s. We, okay, so let me say this. And this is where, again, in this in this dome, right? We live in a dome, right? There's an electromagnetic field in this dome, and there are certain rules of engagement. I believe in my heart of hearts that we are a righteous people that they know, and we are never just going to go outside and kill everybody. So, because they know that there's a spiritual guidance within us that historically has never looked to kill people for power, that we are in a unfortunate situation where we really just need to focus on unifying and protecting ourselves and letting this whole shit become what it be, because we are never going to kill America for America, right? Like, this is a stop we are in, and historically we are not trying to assassinate the president, right? Historically we ain't the ones trying to kill motherfuckers for this bullshit ass power. We just want to be left the fuck alone. Let our tax dollars go to benefit our communities, to clean up roads, to make sure schools is functioning, make sure we can have births in hospitals if we fucking desire to. And at every mark that we deal with, we are dealing with subjugation, bro. In every area of people activity, we are dealing with subjugation. But niggas gonna tell us we got a victim mentality. I've gotten to the point where it's just righteousness over politics, bro, because it's not about victim. And if it is, y'all just gonna keep letting us go through this shit, right? If this is America, the land of the free, the home of the brave, right? You know, when Donald Trump was elected, the cops are just gonna start killing y'all because Donald Trump is talking about qualified immunity. The first thing I said was, so y'all all gonna just let the cops shoot black people, and y'all all came to America for an opportunity? So do y'all give a fuck about black people being shot or not? Because the police here to protect everybody, right? But if the police is only gonna go outside and shoot fucking black people, where's that minority coalition? Where's the we went through struggles too? Where's the righteousness to say, hey, we need to stand with black people because they're being victimized in their own home country? Niggas don't give a fuck. Why? Because they here to get theirs. And as long as they can get theirs and look at us and ignore our story and say, yeah, stop having victim mentality because my family came here and we had to work hard too, they think our shit is about working hard. They think that we just don't work hard enough or because we got an ill proper culture. They don't never talk, wait, you know, the Jews run the Negro culture because all they do is pick the worst representations of them, get them some money, and throw them on all the fucking TVs that they own. They never looking at it from a standpoint of, yo, we are being victimized by psychological warfare because y'all taking the worst representations of our community and letting that be the standard to represent us.
Brother, you so deep. You know what? I'm gonna just say this publicly. Well, no, I shouldn't say it. I mean, it's not like it's a bad thing. You know that there's a possible lineage connection between us. Like we kind of discovered that a couple of years ago. And as I'm hearing you speak, I feel like, man, I don't even need to say nothing. I'm like, this ninja sounds like me, and we don't, and we live in two separate places. That's how I know spiritually, right? That's how spiritually, you know, we're all connected. Number one, but number two, I really do believe there's a lineage connection there through the Little John thing, because that is not a common last name. And let me tell you something. My cousin lives in Detroit. I won't say too much. See, I got to stop doxing myself because I know there's people that need their privacy. But yeah, my uncle went up there up north. So I just think like our people move around. It is what it is. The one thing that you had me thinking, you know how they talk about oil refinery and how I was using the metaphor earlier about the system being like a car, and that they use the American Negro as a fuel source, you know, because without the fuel, you won't get anything done. So basically, we have fueled the economy of the Jewish people because when they came over here, even if some of them had wealth, they don't make it seem like they weren't involved with, they didn't have a Jewish mafia. Don't let these people fool you and don't think that they had an Irish mafia or Italian mafia. People were able to utilize the underground economy to make themselves legit, right? Which is why you had that metaphor in The Godfather of the puppeteer and the puppet master with the puppet, because they're like, it's the politicians that pull the strings, it's the people in the shadows that pull the strings, and you're too busy focusing on the component. So I'm saying all this to say the reason why they may sabotage and keep us where we are economically is because basically it's like every generation of Negroes is like an oil refinery. They're basically using us as fuel. That's why these other groups can come in to our community, open up a Dairy Queen, and then you have somebody like Vivek Ramaswamy, you know, saying with his mouth, act like, you know, he's trying to lecture Negroes and tell us what we need to do. And whether it's NAFTA or whether it's globalism, you got these corporate white supremacists instead of the oligarchs that are telling everybody, hey, come over here to America. The reason why America is the land of opportunity because it's the same as 1790. They were telling them, come over to America because it's an opportunity for you to own property. And if you own property, you can have slaves. These people aren't citizens. These people don't have wealth. This is like an opportunity for you to take advantage of them, to be the fuel source for you to get ahead. And all they've done is just transformed it, right? They haven't reformed, they haven't changed, they just transformed it. And the telling thing is we got the same wealth that we had coming out of Reconstruction, 1/2 of 1%. What do you think? Do you think they're using us as a selling point for globalization and consumerism to say, come over here and set up shop in the black community, but then go live in the white community, and then you need to get your license renewed to practice whiteness but like you say, by posting all this anti-black racism? Like those people, every 4 years they got to get their license renewed. You know, like I say, they're professional white dick suckers, and I land my plane.
Let me say this because you hitting right. I don't know if y'all saw the recent troll movie. I got a daughter, so we watched some stuff, but they always put truth in some of these things. So in the most recent troll movie is these white people, a white guy, white girl, some crackers who can't sing a fucking lick. And what they did was they created perfume and like some type of bodysuit where they go around capturing trolls, squeezing the life force out of the trolls, and it gives them a better voice to sing, right? In order for them, and they saying like American Idol shit, they kidnap trolls. They got this one troll, they squeeze this shit, and it sucks life out of him, and then they start singing, and now they can fucking sing their ass off. That is the Negro. That is us. We are in a paradigm where we are locked to the bottom, right? Economically sanctioned. That's why I say economic sanctioning, because I already done the math. They say we got $1.8 of spending power. Spending power is not the same as disposable income. We own no infrastructure or industries within our communities. So in order for us to reroute 1.8 trillion dollars of spending power to disposable income, all of us, and I mean all of us, including the little babies, would literally have to start saving our money to be put away in a different area. And we could say 50%, 20%, 30%. It would still take damn near 100 years, 60 years, 50 years. I did a module breakdown of how long it would take for us to turn 1.8 in quote spending power to 1.8 trillion of this into in disposable income, since people keep saying black people could be a nation if they would just spend all this money they have.
Let me ask you a question on a baseline, and this is just right off the spot. How much money do you think it takes to raise a child from an infant to they're 18 years old? I want to say like in the 80s or something like that, they said it could take almost $1 million. If that is the case, that means most people in America, regardless of race, are born into the whole. But if black people only have less than 1/2 of 1%, that means as soon as your baby's born, you got college, you got living expenses, you got food, you got a car, then you got your own self. If you don't have any wealth or anything that's going to be passed down, that's why property is so important. So do you think, and I'm not trying to be negative, and disparaging, but do you think like a lot of our people are being born in the negative?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that just adds to where I was gonna land at is this, right? Based on our numbers, we 42 to 47 to 50 million, right? Some states they can count the people who's not counting, right? If our spending power, which is what we contribute to the GDP, is 1.8 trillion, but we own less than 1/2 of 1%, then that means that the money that we are contributing to the GDP is based off of work. That means we are people that got jobs and our money goes into necessities that we need. So if 1.8 trillion dollars is what we have as our income, 30%, quote 30% is disposable. That comes out to about $500 billion, right? $500 billion amongst a nation of 50 million people, after we've taken care of every fucking thing we need to take care of, does it now mean that that $500 billion goes to Gucci and luxury shit? Because there's certain things, depending on where you live at, that are extra cost for your household, for your lifestyle. Raising children is an extra cost, right? Where you taking care of you, your family, but now got to take care of the kids, or if you have nieces and nephews. So the way that it's set up and how I understand it is the money that we contribute to the GDP, 80% of that money is locked in necessities, meaning the things that we need to survive. And in order to reroute ourselves out of those situations, we would still need the government to enforce policies that allow us to establish industries so now we can start circulating the income, right? That whole concept of a dollar don't survive an hour in the black community is because every fucking thing around us in the black community we don't own.
Let me build with you because you're cooking. So basically, what you're essentially describing is another form of sharecropping. If the majority of our resources, whether that money is magnified through loans and credit cards and so forth, the majority of our money is being spent to survive. They know that. That's kind of the conditions that they tried to put our ancestors during sharecropping. How did our ancestors get out of sharecropping? And do you agree with that metaphor that it essentially is nothing but what I say the American people are well-dressed poor people because BC, before COVID, everybody made it seem like they were balling out of control. Now you have white people realizing that white privilege is expensive, but specifically focus on our people. Do you feel like we basically were in a sharecropping situation and didn't realize it?
Yeah, I think that we are being harvested. I think that we have been systematically compromised as a nation. I believe that there are mechanisms that they know how they can control how we move based on Social Security, birth certificates. I think that they know how to identify us. So all the shit we doing for delineation is just letting them know we know who we are and stop ignoring us. But I know that the masterminds that have created the system that we exist under knows how to keep the Negro here. Now, not to say that there's no way that we can get out of that. What I am saying is this. If 80% of our spending power is stuck in stuff that we do not own, but we need to survive. And I'm not talking about your cable. I'm talking about your light bill, your water bill. I'm talking about your gas, your electricity. I'm talking about your transportation to get back and forth to work. I'm talking about your food. I'm talking about your medical stuff, right? Not even talking about medical bills for people that's unhealthy if we deal with that part, right? We are basically in a situation where, and I've done the calculations, if we keep the status quo the way it is, especially with the JAMA report that came out in 2023 that says that we lost 80 million life years in the last 2 decades. We are existing in genocide and we are dying every day. Our life expectancy is slowing down. So when you ask the question about our family sharecropping, no, they died. They never got out of it. They died. They died, harvest of shame. Many Black Americans who sharecrop never got access to own the land. So niggas just start moving to the north. We started breaking away our families and we just tried to find another way to get it. We never succeeded from sharecropping. They were sharecropping all the way up to the 60s in the civil rights movement, right? So we have never seen the turning around, the benefits of what's supposed to be for us, including those civil rights acts that they turned to affirmative action and DEI and gave it to everybody, including white women, but us, right? And I'm gonna land here. Let me land here. Let me land
So
here. But then when you
oh, go
look
ahead,
at
go ahead.
the gov spend from the federal contracting side, when you look at how many Black Americans are able to be business owners and access capital, no different than Elon Musk, where you get a government contract, we only get 1.3% of the government contracts, which is based on policies of 10% set asides that's supposed to be for us. So even in a 10% set aside of billions of dollars, because if you know the U.S. economy, 60% of the money is in for profit, 40% of it is in government contracting on the government side. That's the wealth. That's how this shit works. Why? Because the government can't own everything, so they need to contract with y'all motherfuckers to do some work, right? So if we are not getting access to the contracting side to be able to build up Black American businesses. So when people come spend money, they're spending money with a community that's going to throw the money right back in the community. We are locked out of being able to circulate our economy. Hence why you see it went from us having little grocery stores, then the Asians, then the Spanish, and now the Arabs. After the Arabs is about to be East Indians, and we be like, wait, hold on. No, go
Well,
ahead, go ahead.
look, man. You're cooking because like, I agree with you. Because look, the reason why I agree with you on the genocide factor, man, I needed to take like notes in real time because everything you're saying. Look, I'm just gonna roll up a metaphorical blunt, chill out, we conversating. I agree with you on the genocide because see, really, what the bell was, the dog whistle is about DEI, even though it disproportionately affected white women. What this lets you know, people, is that white folks complain about having to share 1% of opportunity with us. They literally want us to go back to being property. They want us to own nothing. The only difference is the Democrats will give you a date rape drug and make you think everything's okay. And the people on the alt-right, not even Republicans, they're letting you know, no, we want this to be a white ethno state for white people. So we'll use all this coded language like DEI and all this. But the only people that are really going to be on the X, on the chalking block, are the Black folks, because the little bit of Black people that succeed shows them how much of a welfare queen they are, because basically a mediocre white man gets paid a lot of money for having no skills. That's where white privilege comes in. Like you say, they sit there and spill blood when it comes to unions. Whenever they've had to compete with us, ever since we quote unquote, and air quotes, were set free, they've always been insecure about that. And there was one other point that you were making. Oh, this is my point that I was going to ask you. Is by using that logic, even if you're a rudimentary knuckle dragging caveman, it makes my colon power when Negroes think that they're educating white people about their own history. I'm like, by default, they know what white privilege is. They understand this dynamic that we're talking about. The only people who don't understand this dynamic are the American Negro. There's no way people could go to these colleges, pledge to these fraternities, both Black and white, and not understand the economic disparity. And like I say, understand how the system works. So by them intentionally keeping us where they've kept us for like the last 100 years, and now it seems like they're going to go in for the kill. They're like, you know what? America was great when you guys had no rights and you were slaves and you were property. Europe was great when we had white trash as serfs. So that's why they got UBI for their ass. They ain't gonna be left out. They think they got a seat at the table, but they on the menu. So my thing of it is do you feel that especially now that you got the oligarchy in power. I always say they want to make it a worldwide apartheid, and not ironically, but it's almost like history rhymes. Elon is basically a South African Afrikaner, uh, dressed up as this incel gaming nerd that's harmless, which I don't think so at all. I think he's the false prophet in the Bible. So do you feel that so the people can understand? Do you think white people are clueless and they just need their hand held? How else would they maintain this system all this time if they all weren't like, uh, I guess you can say collaborators, if not uh, the people who actually, you know, administrated the harm? Do you feel like they're all collaborators and they know, or they just need to be educated? I don't think so.
I mean, I think, white people exist in a tier. And within that tier, you have whites at the top that know what it is, know who we are, and they designed the system the way that they have. And I think the concept of whiteness, the invention of the white concept, white race, is something that was positioned to make sure that those who did not know can know the bare minimum. As long as I'm white and I'm in America, I will have more or be better off than the Negro. Right? Because, there's so many television shows, so many different skits that have existed, so many, studies and case studies where white people were asked, would you trade your life in to be black? And they say, hell fucking no. Why? Because they know the implications of what it means to be black in this country, right? The concept of you could have the poorest white man who don't have shit, even bad teeth, and he still feel more protected than a wealthy Negro. That lets you know that the construct that we exist under is based in a reality where individuals don't need to know the information. That's why that's the privilege. We, on the other hand, have to know the information. Hence why, even on apps like this, you put us in a room with a bunch of white people, we gonna know more history than them. All they gonna do is point to a violent stats and say, well, look at y'all shoot each other. And it's like, nigga, that's 1% of 50 million, right? We ain't, it ain't 25 million black people in jail, right? It's less than 500,000. So there's 1% of our entire population that you are trying to make the face of us, right? So the benefit is the low hanging fruit of whiteness gives them operating material, especially if the title's talking about victim mentality, so they can lean on, we were victims too. Hey, we are Irish, we came here as slaves. But then when we ask, okay, so when the Emancipation Proclamation happened and Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, the Irish people were freed then too? Were Irish people freed from the Emancipation Proclamation? Right? Can we get down to the nitty gritty that Irish people have to go get manumitted in the church? I mean, in the courts? Did they have to walk around with freedom papers like Negroes? Like, let's really get to the truth of all truths. If people are turning us being victims into the oppression Olympics, and that's the issue I don't like, because America was not built on the oppression of everybody, right? That's just not the reality of what this country was. And there's information, there's the Library of Congress, there's archives. We just got to look at the history. But because this is our history and we have been positioned in a negative element of it, we have to know this shit. That doesn't automatically mean that every white person knows it, cares to know it, would benefit from knowing it, or are willing to know it, because again, it changes the conversation of who is a victim, victim blaming, victim mentality. And wait, hold on, these Negroes need
Hey,
something because some shit happened to
I,
them.
I, I
Go
know,
ahead.
I know, I know you build it. This is kind of like my amen to your sermon. Just chew on this straw for a minute. You know how you're bringing up the 1%. One thing that rings in my left ear is the one drop rule. It's funny how, like I said, they have that means all this has been systematic with them. Not in other words, they want to have 99% of I'm white and I say so. Number two, when Kanye came back on the app and he was doing his rant, there was one thing he said that was interesting. He said, "Man, I was down to 300 million. Now I bounced back. I have $2 billion, right?" And then I just did a little math. I said, "Well, look, Negro, Elon Musk is worth like $450 billion. If you take 10% of that, you got about 40 billion. So then that means 1% would be about 4 billion. So, nigga, you're still in the same situation that we're in, one half of 1%." And then about 30 minutes later, he cut his shit off.
I mean, let me say this, right? Because to what you were saying about high paid, Shopify cut Kanye West's website off when he threw the Nazi T-shirt up. that lets you know even at 2.7 billion, he ain't in full control. Right? Because this is all about industry access, power, and control. That's why Ice Cube has to get the Department of Justice to investigate the NBA, because even the NBA is threatened by a black man putting six people on a basketball court to play basketball. And because he's going to get former NBA players, and it's market share, right? This shit is market share. How much attention, resources, how much of an industry demand, how much can you control? Ice Cube coming out with the big three and having to sue the NBA means that they don't want to compete with the market share of a black man being able to be in the industry. That's why there's something called antitrust law violations, where you got to break up these monopolies, and there's shit corporatized in this country where niggas is going to make sure that the power is consolidated, and the only way to get around that is you're gonna have to be Kanye. And I mean that for better or for worse. He's the first example of a nigga that used the industry, got rich, got famous, felt the way about his contracts. Not saying he's doing everything the right way. I got my criticism against him, but from a ownership aspect, right? Don't talk to me about Elon Musk unless you're gonna tell me how can Negroes get satellites in the sky. Because we're going to get to a point where digital media and digital technology and the digitization of humanity is going to come down to what it was with like net neutrality type shit. Like, who has access to the best computers? Who has access to the satellites? Who's stopping Robbie's Room right now from being on the feed because it has Jewish in the title? Right? We are operating in a system where Black Americans, at my understanding, have never had keys to the building. And if we had keys to the building, we didn't own the motherfucker. Right? We want to own the building. We want to own the block. We want to own the materials that the building was made from. We want to earn the stuff that you put in there, because in order for us to get to a point where our upward mobility can exist in its own right, is we're going to have to fully integrate ourselves into group think economic and power, like Negro unity. Like literally what J. Edgar Hoover says, the greatest threat to America is Negro unity, because the only way to get ourselves to a point where we cannot be sabotaged is to own stuff, because they can't use physical brute violence like they did in the 1910s, 20s, 30s, 40s. But right now, what they'll do is they do what they did to Kanye. We're going to just ban you on social media. We're going to not let you sell your merchandise. We're going to kick your shit off of Apple Music. We're going to tell you, get your money out our fucking banks. Right? So I look at that and say, from a free man walking concept, Kanye is somebody right, wrong, and indifferent who is trying to find a way to be completely independent and have ownership of all his intellectual property and operate in capitalism. Tell me why the fuck Shopify that deleted his account. So now he probably got to build his own server, right, to be able to create his own store so he could sell whatever the fuck he want. And we talking about the internet, where you could buy everything from fucking kids on the internet. Right, and a nigga throwing up a Nazi shit.
You know
So
what?
again,
Listen, to your point though, remember you said earlier about the Jewish people being able to come up with those magazines so people could subsidize their businesses, or that means those magazines were going to Black people's segregated communities, correct? So it was like the Shopify of their day.
I mean, look, and let me say this. It means, yes, and it also means that there's a honest threat if the status quo is changed. Example, the richest black man in this country is named David Stewart. His company is called Worldwide Technology, $17 billion company. He himself is worth about $6 billion. More than Robert Smith, more than Bob Johnson, more than Michael Jordan, more than fucking Oprah Winfrey. He's the guy, the number one guy. He started his company in 1990, was able to get an SBA loan, was accepted in the 8A program, which is a federal Acceler program for government contractors. And now he's been able to use the government, like how Elon Musk does, to be able to upstart his business to become the biggest Black-owned business and the most wealthiest Black man in the United States. Now, here I say this. If people don't know who he is in Black History Month, that's by design, right? It is. If we know everything about everybody else, we know Sexy Red to fucking Rosa Parks, but we don't know in a capitalistic country, the richest black man was able to interface with the government and be able to create an industry where he can hire black people and he owns it because it's private too. It's not public. He didn't throw it on the stock market, so he still owns it. 51 or more percent. If we don't own that if we don't know that information, then that means that we are living in a situation that it's not set up for us to know that. Why? Because that's one Negro who started a business in 1990. And we got a bunch of young kids, tech geniuses, a bunch of people with ingenuity now that if they knew we could access the government to have this and move forward, we wouldn't just be 1.3% of government contracts. It might be matched with more lawsuits because we be applying for contracts if we don't get. But what it means is that it's not attractive to promote a black man who owns an industry and is working directly with the government. But Elon Musk does the same thing. He is a white man that owns a business that interfaces with the government so much because the nigga ain't create Tesla. He's not Nikola Tesla. He didn't create that shit, right? He comes from a
He didn't create SpaceX
he didn't create
either.
SpaceX either. His parents got rich off of selling like diamond and emerald mining in South Africa. He from that ilk, like them Jews and them Dutch niggas that went to South Africa and got into the Kimberley mines. That's a part of Balfour Declaration and how Israel became a state. He a part of that Anglo-Jewish handshake. Hence why ADL said, wait, we don't know Elon Musk, it's okay. He did the Hitler salute. Like, hey, nigga, that's the handshake power. So I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna land. He is able to operate as a private citizen with a private business and do government contracting and become Elon Musk in America with SpaceX and Tesla. Now the nigga got satellites in the sky. And Kanye West is one of the richest black men in the world, in America, and Shopify was able to take his page down, right? We are dealing with a reality of we need to take a step back and look at where we are trying to go because we reparationists, right? So that means when reparations come, more businesses, more black independence and ownership gonna come and more niggas gonna try to come shut our mics off or tell us,
Man, you're inspiring so much thought. The first thing that comes to mind.
Hey, Rob, before you continue,
1 second.
let's get the guest speaker up.
I sent him. I sent him an invite. The brother hasn't accepted. All he has to do is request the mic. I'll bring him up. I was going to say this real quick and shout out to Brother Tex and shout out to you, Zaire. I think it's King Silk. If you want to come up, you can. But I don't want to lose my train of thought real quick because see, when you're cooking, you have my mind spinning. Okay, some people may argue and say, well, man, look, now that they have these, they're dismantling DEI and all this. The brother that you just previously mentioned, that was my second thing. I wanted you to repeat this brother's name for people like me and in the cheap seats so that we can do some research and look at the blueprint and look at what is hidden, because I think that is very important. And you're right, man. Like my brother's in the IT, like all the kids who grew up from the latchkey generation and started playing video games, a lot of them got into tech. There's a lot of very intelligent young black people who know way more about tech than me. I feel like they're young Wesley on Star Trek: The Next Generation taking over taking over the Starship Enterprise. I'm like, damn, how did this ninja know how to do all this? So what is the brother's name? And secondly, do you think them getting rid of DEI will have any effect on any of us trying to basically mimic what he succeeded at doing?
Okay, his name is David Stewart with a D. His company is called Worldwide Technology from St. Louis, Missouri. Richest black man in America, Negro, and he's in tech. So shut the fuck up for the naysayers. And to your DEI question, okay, David Stewart is an example of when you actually do policy right.
Is anybody speaking?
Yeah. Tex, you might have to drop.
Yeah, Tex, you may have to drop down and come back up.
So David Stewart is what happens when government operates correctly, right? Here's a Negro who is from a community that has economically, socially, and historically been disenfranchised. And he says, I got $2,000 to start me a business, and I have merit and I have hard work, and I want to get shit going. Oh, the government has a small business administration that creates opportunities. oh wait, they have something called an 8A program where if I have a business, they will be interested in doing business relations or business connections with me. No different than niggas get military contracts. We always say, yeah, somebody got mad money off a military contract. That's a little highly sophisticated for everybody to get a military contract. But there's many other contracts you could get, like including doing roller skating in a park at the parks. They give out contracts to that too, or double dutch, right? That's another story. So he was able to utilize the policies that existed, right? Affirmative action starts with John F. Kennedy, 1961. This is before Lyndon B. Johnson and women and gays and transgenders and white women. No, he was able to utilize something established to be able to access federal resources so he could expand his business. That is no different than niggas getting smoke shops and popping up in your hood. That's no different than the Asians owning the grocery stores. And how the fuck is y'all? Because they are getting contracts to provide services to people in community. So to your DEI, because I'm gonna land here. So to your DEI situation, here's this. Over the last 60 years, we could have had way more David Stewarts had it not been for DEI, had it not been for watering down these policies and trying to focus on diversity, meaning let's try to give everybody something. No, we got one David Stewart, let's get one Elon Musk, let's get one Asian too, let's get, oh, they're straight, let's get a gay one too, because all DEI was creating workforce balance, meaning I got Robbie, Rashid, my name's Rashid, I got Robbie, Rashid, and Zaire hired as 3 black men. You know what? We need 3 Hispanic men hired too. Let's go get 3. That's all that shit was let's try to create a workspace balance. What David Stewart did was just be one Negro with a great idea and went to the government. This is what I got. How can we do business together? And because he is socially and economically disenfranchised, the government has a responsibility to support small businesses. He is no different than you with an idea. He's no different than me with an idea. But if the operating system isn't focusing on us, right? And I mean, y'all gonna hear me say we need to start calling ourselves.
Hold up. I don't want to skip past something very important with this brother. Okay, so how at that time was he able to ensure, even if it wasn't in those people's heart to give him that opportunity? I guess there must have been checks and balances, like you say, for people to be sued if in fact they denied him the opportunity. But then that also suggests that there were some people that had it in their heart to be willing to give him the opportunity. Which do you think more was the incentive? Was it the fact that they know they could be penalized if they didn't? And then lastly, I would say, just like what they're doing right now, how Neely Fuller says white supremacists play both sides of the fence. You're right. The Democrat people of color edition, they didn't change anything. They just transformed the outer appearance. They put, they bought a kit and put it on a wrecked vehicle. And what I see the Republicans doing now is they're just giving white trash a pimped ride. But at the end of the day, like you say, people like Elon are going to be the biggest billionaire panhandlers, taking from the government, the same government that they claim that they're shrinking. So I guess my thing is, do you think they did it more from their heart? Or do you think they did it because of checks and balances? Because in my opinion, going back to 1%, I think only 1 out of 10 white people are capable of being righteous. I think the other 5 will cave into cowardice and will be, complicit with us being sabotaged with silence and inaction. And then you have the last 4 that'll just be the outspoken narcissists and actual extremists that will plan on inflicting intimidation. I know there was a lot to digest, but you're sharp. I know you feel where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Okay. So he creates worldwide technology in 1990. So you would have to go back to 1990 and what was the politics at the time. That's the crack era. That's what's his name? Jesse Jackson running for president, right? Did he run in 88 or 84, somewhere around that time, right? That's when Black Americans are becoming African Americans. You get that whole new, we in the 90s era. And I believe he might have just really honestly been early. I think that, because again, these are policies that's been around since 1961. Then in 1971, what was it? President Richard Nixon does an executive order that specifies that us as Negroes, right, not all Black people, because I do believe there's a conspiracy of when we went from Negro to Black and they started benign neglecting us, right? Because I believe a whole thing, right? So anyway, he was able to benefit during a time frame where we are only a decade or two from segregation and integration, and these are policies that exist, right?
You know what somebody pointed out? He did it during the Reagan and Bush years.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Think about and during the time frame where shit was focused on domestic and in-state, business expansion. And I think David Stewart might be a Republican. I'm not too sure. He might be. He might lean more conservative, but again, he's a capitalist. He used American capitalism. He had a business, and this is what I want to put into the people's heads. But this is what John F. Kennedy set up for us in 1961. The goal of that first executive order in 1961 was for us to become government contractors. It wasn't so we could just get government jobs. Like, we didn't start getting government jobs till like the 80s and fucking 90s. In the 60s, we coming from segregation, still with our communities somewhat and our businesses somewhat, but we were not getting an opportunity to expand nationally. Right. So this
Hold up. I know you probably are knowledgeable about this, but let me make a public service announcement. And I really appreciate you, brother. I can tell that you're a kindred spirit. I have to ask this, but then only answer it after I make this announcement. FDR expanded the federal government, and they try to make it seem like he created inroads for Negroes, but I suspect that it also created an opportunity for white people to get into the middle class. I think the government probably financed the white middle class, and I bet you per capita they benefited more from the New Deal and those reforms than we did. So a lot of us probably had tokenism instead of access, to your point, and I'm pretty sure you'll expand on that eloquently. I wanted to say to Brother King Silk, I've sent you a mic request. Brother Zaire had spoke to me, and he felt you as somebody that's very knowledgeable about not only foundation of Black American and African American history, but that you may want to contribute to the topic. I guess you could say, so to speak, he was like the intended guest speaker. And Brother Zaire told me, he said, well, Robbie, you got a following. I said, nigga, I don't got no following. Well, I guess there's a handful of people who came up in here. Maybe they came up in here because of Brother Talent. Maybe they came up here because of you and all the other beautiful sisters we have in here. Because, it's like church. Negroes will follow the beautiful women. So shout out to all the ladies with your lovely self. I hope your Valentine spoiled you, gave you chocolate, gave you flowers, and made you feel like the queen that you are. With that being said, King Silk, when you get a chance, please request a mic. Also to Brother Texwell, you hit me in the back channel. I didn't drop you maliciously. I was dropping you because we couldn't hear you on the mic. So if anybody can reach out to that brother, please let him know. I'll do that. I mean, you got to do something egregious for me to block somebody, and I hardly ever drop somebody now except for like a straight up white supremacist. So, at any rate, to your point, what you were saying, how we just now started getting inroads into the government, some people may argue and say, well, FDR gave us opportunities. And that's part of the reason why we have big government now. And it's funny how white people have amnesia, because as far as my understanding, capitalism was on the ropes. Capitalism was about to fail. It was a failed experiment. So without those reforms, again, mediocre white people wouldn't have food on the plate being a part of government. What do you say?
Man. Okay, here's this. We have lost $100 trillion at minimum since 1865 till now, based on the lack of Black Americans being able to contribute to the national area. Right? Example, Ice Cube is suing the NBA because the NBA is not even allowing him to expand the Big Three. And that's happening right now. How much success and expansion do you think the Big Three would be if it could become the Big Five? Or if the NBA would let more players come and invest in and expand the Big Three? That would add more economic value to the GDP, creating more job opportunities, and growing the sports industry with a Black man having a company. Right?
Wait. Are you saying the NBA is giving the players a non-compete clause?
Yeah,
Like
of
they're not
course. They
allowed to
can't even
go?
invest.
Oh, see, family don't even know about that. Can you explain a non-compete clause, what that is?
They have to be retired. I don't even know if they got a limitation as how many years, but I know if they are active in the NBA right now, they cannot participate, contribute. I don't even know if niggas could go to the games. They probably could go to the games, but they can't have any business involvement because at that point in time, it is a violation of the contracts with that non-compete clause stuff. Yep. A 3-on-3 against a 5-on-5. So anyway, let me say this. There's a reason why in 1913 is that the Federal Reserve Act? Yeah. And then in 1933 or 34, you have the Gold Act where they start taking niggas gold away. if you create a system on slavery and you free a people, and the people that you free, you never give them access to participate in the national economy to contribute to the growth and expansion of that country is going to have to do a few things. One is create a fake monetary system, right? One of the reasons why they had to create a fake monetary system is because they built this shit off slavery, nigga. Like, some of this shit is basic. They built this system off of slavery, free labor. So now you got to pay people. And in order to pay people, people need to generate material products. People need to create a product or service and contribute to the growth of this country. We only got Annie Malone and Madam C.J. Walker. Madam C.J. Walker doesn't have an opportunity to expand her business to become the Black-owned Macy's, where now she's able to grow her makeup and hair, or her hairline to a makeup line, to skincare, to beauty, right? So let me slow it down. So between 1865 and the New Deal, which is in the 1930s, Black Americans are economically sanctioned, and we are operating in group economics. The only thing that's destroying the Black community's economic value is white Europeans, white immigrants coming and fucking up our neighborhoods like the Red Summer. But Black America is not technically going through a Great Depression. How? We were sharecroppers. We were formerly enslaved. We put our money in the Freedmen Bank. They stole that money. So everything that we had between 1865 to the New Deal in 1934, whenever that deal was, is based on our own ingenuity and circulating our economy and doing products and services with each other.
Damn.
So the New Deal and the sale of the New Deal was to the European immigrants who came here that needed access to opportunities, that needed a cushion, right? Because again, name the time when Negroes had businesses and these Europeans could come work for us, right? No, we were fighting labor disputes with the railroad contracting companies, with the Industrial Revolution, with the expansion of the West, with the motor industry, with the, like, that's the Industrial Revolution. Negroes were looking to advance ourselves, and we were being killed and boxed out, bro. So to somebody that wants to sell the New Deal towards Negroes, no, Negroes didn't need the fucking New Deal in 1930. That was European.
So basically, our tax dollars subsidized these white immigrants. It gave them an opportunity.
Yeah, what's the book? The Black Tax. I got both of them. The Black Tax breaks the whole concept down. That, how about this? It goes back to before emancipation. Because up in the North, you had Negroes that was free since 1799 in Massachusetts, in New York, 1798, then 1827. So in the Northeast, you had Black Americans who were enslaved at one point in time, or free people of color before 1865 that had to pay taxes. And we weren't even considered full citizens after the Dred Scott case.
Hold up. You know what you got me thinking? See, because in the British colonies, they had some free Negroes too. Some of them were mulattoes, and some of them were, I guess, former indentured servants, right? And a couple of them were Africans too. So here's the thing. I'm wondering if they were paying taxes. Then they had to, because what they say, that was why there was a whole revolution. Taxation without representation. You know what I mean? So then these ninjas break away, create this country, but then they say, you freedmen who fought as the Minutemen, you freedmen who helped get us where we are. What's his name? Crispus Attucks was a victim of police brutality from the British overseer, and then you gonna sit here and tell these freedmen they can't be citizens, but they pay taxes. This is why, now me speaking, that's why the white man is the devil. And I ain't saying that because I heard Minister Farrakhan say it or Malcolm X say it. I'm saying it through deductive reason over a cumulative period of time. It's 2025, and y'all are still practicing racism and have the nerve to whine and cry, not only about the Jews, but any progress that we've made. That is insanity. You can't say you don't know. You are actively not only participating in our genocide, but you're actively just greedy and never satisfied. So they wake up every day jealous of each other based on class, and then their justification for being a greedy, gluttonous, selfish Christian crying caveman is to say I'm better than the American Negro, or let me look at the FBI statistics. And like I say, if they want to bring up the FBI statistics, well, let's go to the Roman Empire and look at all those emperors and look at how they were killed. Was it white on white crime? You better believe it was. The Secret Service of their day, the Praetorian Guard, killed their own emperors. They poisoned their own mothers. They killed each other. They started adopting the same Greco-Roman homosexual baby old Diddy parties that they were running in Athens. They'd start doing that shit in Greece with corruption. They're like Elon Musk running around having 12 children, but you want to talk about some Negro in the hood that got 5 or 6 kids that probably could take care of them well if you would pay him anything other than nigger pennies to do his job. It just angers me, Brother Talent. That's all. That's my rant.
Yeah, I know you got some other hands, so let me say this and I'm going to lay in and let some more space. Bringing a knife to a gunfight is like bringing righteousness and morality to the operating system of this country. It's just not going to fit, right? King Henry VIII said he wanted to divorce his wife, and the church said no. He created his own fucking church. You get that? I want to divorce my wife, but it is against scripture. So the church is not going to allow me to do it. But since I'm king, I'm going to create my own church. That's what we exist under.
He signed an executive order,
right?
basically.
I mean, we exist under a hypocrisy for power. That's why I've always had an issue, because I wear my MAGA hat. I'm a conservative. I'm not a Republican, but I'm definitely more conservative because you ain't transgender reading our, you ain't vaccine mandating. I believe in closed borders, protect my Negroes, right? I'm good with all that. But what I am also is a reminder to niggas that wear MAGA hats that your hypocrisy will be fucking called out. Are we a Christian nation? Are we a righteous people? Or are we not? Because all I see is people making excuses for why they are going to deny the Negro to having access to, economic access to the pie. Like, that's all this shit comes down to, bro. It comes down to a contradiction of a country that said all men are created equal, and they had slaves. They had human beings as slaves, right? So there is no reconciling unless you're going to truly reconcile, which is, are you willing to share power? That's all this shit come down to, bro. Ice Cube has a league, and in 2024, he had to get the Department of Justice to investigate the NBA. That is fucking crazy. It's Drew leagues out here. It's a bunch of other leagues out here where Lord niggas don't even gotta go to college traditionally and still go to the NBA. But you suing this nigga for 3-on-3 basketball. I mean, he gotta sue y'all for 3-on-3 basketball. No, it's power. And power in this country is either money or violence. And black people have never had a monopoly on violence because we're spiritual people that's not about to kill nobody over no power, right? Hence why you ain't have black internal issues like that until fucking gang culture, after they destroyed the movements and flooded our communities with crack. Because there wasn't no shootouts in the 1940s, right? We wasn't rotting on niggas in the 1950s. That was the Italians. And in this country, bro, I'm gonna land here. It's just, bro, it's about money or violence. And they've economically kept us blocked out. And the only way we've been able to expand or advance ourselves economically is with a contract. So think about a contract. I'm a con you, and I'm a
publicly admit.
And I'm a keep.
I'm a publicly.
Go ahead.
I'm a publicly admit, man, I may have to jack a couple of your phrases, bro, because hypocrisy for power is spot on, and not monopoly of violence, but it was the other one you said. Look, that's why I'm glad the space is recorded. This is a treat for me. I don't like to be up here as a naturalized Babylonian, because I can babble and I can spit, but I love it when people come in here and teach. And since I know on a personal level that there may possibly be a family connection, I still feel like there's a spiritual connection. And you've come in here and you've cooked, and I hope I've given you ample opportunity to get it out. And I would definitely like for you to come back in the future if I host any other spaces. And I don't mind you cooking, because I think that you do a lot of teaching. What's his name? Texwell, Brother Texwell. If you're in the space, request the mic. You could come up. King Silk. I won't say the brother's name again because I don't want to like put him on the spot, but Zaire, if you can, just hit him up. Maybe he's away from his phone or whatever, but I want him to know that we don't have a problem with him coming up to speak. As a matter of fact, anybody who wants to come up and speak, you can, because this is like karaoke. I don't care if you sing Mary Has a Little Lamb or you sing I Will Always Love You or Jesus Loves Me. We ain't gonna boo you. Come up, express yourself, because we don't want confirmation bias. We want experience confirmation. And with that being said, I'm gonna go to Brother Enosh. What's good?
What's good, fam? Who that brother telling? Yeah, let me answer it. Are Jewish people successful because they don't have a victim mentality? Out of 7 reasons for their success, that would be the number one reason. Victim mentality. That's the number one reason why they're that successful. Brother Talent could go on and on and on, and I could listen because he be doing a lot of reading too, so he know what's up. And I mean, I know y'all have enough intelligence to know to agree that if you list 7 reasons on why they are that successful, victim mentality, that's what they held on to throughout all these years. They held on to that. So that's it though.
Hey, Brother Zaire, have you spoken in the back channel to your man? Because just to let everybody know, a couple of days ago, Brother Zaire and I were looking at a video.
He's listening.
No, Brother Zaire and I were listening. There was a video that we saw, a clip of a guy. His last name was Prager, and he was on that that big head Arabic dude that scam people out of a multi-level marketing thing, and he has the nerve to run his mouth, talking shit about Negroes. He's always doing that slick ass shit. Y'all know who I'm talking about. He's got a big ass nose and a big forehead. But at any rate, this dude was talking about, they just brought up Negroes for no reason. He was basically saying the reason why Jews are successful is because we don't have a victim mentality like the American Negro. And it's when I heard Prager, the last name, it also made me think of Prager, that little racist think tank. That's why I don't differentiate between left wing, right wing. We can have values that are conservative. We can have values that are liberal, but we're going to temper it with morality. That's the difference between foundational Black Americans and these uncivilized cavemen who basically benefit from a marketing campaign to rebrand them as Gavin Newsom, Bill Clinton, Patrick Swayze, everybody that we've admired, everybody that we've thought are civilized people. But like to your point, it's all about power. It's the hypocrisy of power. And so what happens is when you catch somebody's hand in the cookie jar, somebody's going to come up and they're going to be like, well, no, it's them over there. They're the bad ones. They're racist. Oh, no, it's them over there because, they're debaucherous. And then you find out they all belong to the same fraternity. And they're the ones who taught Puff Daddy how to do the freak offs. They're the ones bringing over the pink cocaine. They're the ones talking about Epstein's. And when I say they the ones, I'm talking about white Americans. Because I think white Americans, the next time they host the Oscars, every white person needs an honorary Oscar because you're a phony fucker. They're phony. They've mastered being phony so well, we actually believe racism was over. And these fuckers know. It's like, you know what it's like? It's like me going to your house, Brother Talent, and you tell me, hey, brother, do you want some? I'm not even going to do you like that. Hell no, because you family. I'm going to make up a mythical person. Somebody, a chick invites me to her house. And she says, sit on the couch. Everything's cool. I'm going to fix you a drink. And then I smell something. I'm like, what's that? I go to the restroom. The toilet stopped up. But I said, okay, maybe she's just having a problem. Then I look under the rug and there's all kind of trash. And then you just start to see all these flaws. And then before you know it, you're like, man, this is an unclean, unsanitary motherfucker. But they're putting on lipstick, makeup. They know how to talk well. And they'll try to lure you to sleep so that you just don't use common sense to notice the trash. America at this point in terms of morality is like a stopped up toilet in a public restroom. And they just keep spraying Febreze. And they're trying to tell me that Skittles taste like shit. I don't think so. And that's really what it is they're being exposed so much for their phoniness. Like it is 2025 and you had that white woman pull the shit she pulled in Ohio talking about the brother didn't live in his house. Did you see that, Brother Talent? She's like, oh my God, I don't believe you. Good thing she was caught on the doorbell camera. But my point is she went straight into victim mode. I'm like, What acting school did she go to? Did she go to Juilliard to learn how to be a fake white bitch? Do you think, Taylor?
But if the system, bro, like, all right, that's why I get into my Matrix bag, right? Because as I get older, I understand. Or they clone Tyrone. Isn't that the white woman thing? Ain't that what the white woman did out here in New York in Central Park, where the dude was a bird watcher? He was walking around, and the white woman said, "Oh my God, he's gonna attack me," and she called the police. Like there are prototypes or archetypes of different versions of Americans, and this is the shit that they do. And when it comes to this country, right? There's a skit in there's a movie. What's the movie? One of these horror movies. I'll find the name of it, but it's like a black horror movie where they were talking about mystery shows. And the dude says that the first corporate commodity was the American Negro. Wait, I mean American nigger. And what I mean by that is people can come to this country or be in this country, and all they have to do is spew anti-blackness, and they will find a platform and they will get paid for it. They will, right? Because a part of the operating system in this country is the perception of how we are has to be against the status quo of what this system is. So instead of dealing with us as victims, right? Because people don't never say that no, the Jews don't have victim mentality because society sees them as victims. So the mentality is reinforced by the people whom either have been forced, coerced, or believe it themselves that this community has been victimized. So because of that, we have to give them access and space and room for them to get their shit off. So it's hard to
All
say
right.
there's a
Can we
victim
get deeper?
mentality.
Can we get deeper? Man, I'm loving this. This is like I'm gonna say amen to this, just in a non-religious way. I hope I want to hear what King Silk has to say. If Professor Allen comes in, I can end today happy as a pig in shit. Pause. Here's the thing. What I think, if you listen to some of these neo-Nazi Christian fascists, they're hoping that Armageddon kicks off in the Middle East because they think Jesus is going to make an appearance. He's going to make a pay-per-view appearance if they create the conditions. They really don't like the Jews, but they literally believe that they're the chosen people as white people. Because I listen to these idiots, and they're like, so what I'm saying is magical thinking is how the rich white man controls the poor white man. And for optics, they have to keep a white presence over there in the Middle East because they've been selling everybody this idea for the last 1,000 years that Jesus is white, that Moses and all them were white, and some kind of way, they're God chosen people and this and that third. So that's why they will invest all of that money, not so much because they're kissing the Jews' ass. It's like it's just you got rich white people and you got poor white people and you got oligarchs and you got corporatized white people that are like, look, man, we can split up these resources globally. Okay. Basically, it's like two perverts arguing over sex positions. You know what I'm saying? The Republicans are like, man, we're just gonna put it in your mouth, and I want to make your eyeballs gag out, and I want your throat to look like a pelican. And the more you squirm, the better. So when you're like, oh my God, that's not fair. When the Democrats are over here like squirming and crying, they get off on that. They're like, oh yeah, bitch, you gagging, you speaking German. These other motherfuckers, what they doing is they like, okay, well, how can I be more subtle? We're going to go here and do something called foreign direct investment. We're going to make these people feel like they have political independence, but they don't have economic power, to your point, Brother Talent. So what they do to the American Negro in America, they do to these other people's home country, which is why they become professional white dick suckers. They're taught to hate themselves. They want to bleach white. Ultimately, they don't even care if they marry a piece of white trash that goes over there on his Social Security check. You got some of them Asian women over there licking honey off some trailer trash's ass. Because here, he ain't going to get no white woman that looks like Barbie. He can't even get meth head Barbie. Not even, she don't even want to give him no pussy. So this motherfucker will go all the way to Southeast Asia, get some poverty pussy, and them women don't care if they got to get beat like the Passion of Christ, long as they shoot out a white baby. Because like you say, and that's why Trump is killing that whole anchor baby shit, because they're like, yes, it's like reaching home plate. They're like, I do not want to deal with what the American Negro's dealing with. Everybody else is just playing dumb. They know what racism is. When I talk to friends from all over the globe, when we get past, all the pleasantries, they'll bring up race. They'll bring up how people in Taiwan are racist. They'll bring up how people in Indonesia discriminate against people who are Papua New Guinea. They'll bring up the colorism. My ex-wife was Mexican American. She was cool. I didn't know anything about LULAC and all of that at the time in the early 2000s. But you know what? When you start to connect dots, things make sense. It's like not only did the Spaniards do a good job of giving them Windows 98, but now these motherfuckers they got the updated operating system. They're using racism, white supremacy. So it's like what the Bible said, and Adam and Eve were not deceived. I refuse to believe these people are deceived. That's why if I have white people in the space, it's like, unless you're actively trying to help dismantle the system of racism, white supremacy, then you're not an ally. And I'm not here to be entertaining people, because in one sense, it's like this is life or death for us. But then you're reminding me on a spiritual sense, that's why we're supposed to be in the world, not of the world. Focus on us. Because you know what gives me comfort, white America? I realize that I don't have to lift the sword. You've shown us throughout civilization that you will decline yourselves. You had your white ethno state. You won the Super Bowl. You had the republic. But because of greed, stupidity, ignorance, magical thinking, Polybius was like, oh my God, the Romans have figured it out, because us Greeks, we got soft. They became just like the Democratic Party. They went from Goldwater Republicans to some limp wrist, baby oil Greeks. Just promoting that LGBTQ shit. And I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not trying to be sexist or racist. I'm telling you the truth of what came out of his mouth. He said, we got too comfortable. They started doing freak offs. They started not paying attention to the working class. They didn't invest in their military, because they were standing on the shoulders of giants. They benefited from previous generations that understood, you know what, we have to have warfare and we have to have balance and we need to be representative of the people. But it's like when you keep passing down generational wealth without merit, when somebody just inherits the kingship, they don't have to fight to get it. That's when you get these idiots like Elon Musk that, like, instead of him going to go do something else with his money, I don't care how much money you have. You should be able to have 10 houses and wear 10 hats. But you shouldn't be some evil, maniacal eugenicist that's like, I have a God complex because there's white people in the Middle East, and because we've told everybody else that white sky daddy is going to come down. So guess what? I have a God complex. It's up to me to fix the world. Who said the world was broken in the first place? And that's the same thing. They have this stoic thinking that they got from the Greeks. It helped them at first have a balanced government, because they had 3 branches of government. And then in the end, what happened? You had rich merchants start buying politicians. And once those politicians got bought, you had political gridlock. Then once you had political gridlock, you end up having civil war. And to avoid the civil war, people have to pick a side. So then you had Julius Caesar. But then what did Julius Caesar do? He was the Donald Trump of his day. What did he do? He fell for Cleopatra, did he not? Do I have my history right, guys? I don't know. So, that pissed all them white women off of their day, the MAGA of their day. They're like, oh my God, Julius Caesar being seduced by this black woman. Hell yeah, she seduced his ass. Hell yeah, she did. She wanted that position of power, because she's like, Rome's going to come over and try to conquer Egypt anyway. So I want to have fair trading. Here we go again, what you were saying, Brother Talent. We don't want to dominate. People just like, man, we just want fair trade. We just want fair dealing. Why does there have to be a dominant passive relationship? Why can't we have a symbiotic relationship? But since Rome already lost their morality, forgot about the working people, they had that split. Then, Mark Antony, so forth, and boom, eventually Julius Caesar, after doing everything that he did, that he thought people were going to be grateful and appreciate, when men's hearts, money just makes you more of who you are. So now you have all these privileged people that have all this ambition. I think they stabbed him up pretty good. And that was the beginning of the per capita. So y'all, when y'all tell me that, oh my God, you're under white rulership, we live in a winter wonderland. Bullshit. You're still going to have dominant and recessive and passive, which half of these racist fuckboys who come in here talking shit, they're passive. They ain't gonna bust a grape, but they'll get angry and drive 200 miles and go shoot up black people. But they know not to do anything to Jewish people, quote unquote, that they claim is their problem. But really what it is, it's not even about Jews. It's about the fact that they're failing in a country that they know was built to give them an opportunity and was supposed to promise giving them a competitive advantage. That was the same way people felt when they were Roman during the Republic era. But once it became emperors, it's like they don't learn from their own history. Once you start letting wealth get consolidated to the point, and the whole point of laws are supposed to be checks and balances for morality. So even though you can do certain things, you shouldn't do certain things because you know how to have a measured response. You know how to have discipline. So when they come talk about government is too big, it's not that government is too big. It's that greedy white men have no discipline. They don't have any sexual discipline, whether they're on the left, and they have no sexual discipline if they're on the right. And to your point, they're hypocrites for power. So like I said, the Democrats turned into the Athenians in the Hellenistic era. They're too busy worrying about gender, thinking everything's fine, being champagne socialists, thinking everything's fine, and they forgot about the working man to lace their own pockets, embracing globalism. So they'll strike you from behind. They'll hit it from the back after giving you a date rape drug. That's the Democrats. The Republicans are just like Trump. I told you I'm gonna grab you by the pussy. Why are you shocked that we got rid of abortions and threw it back to the states? So no matter how we swing it, all we got is us, like you said, Brother Talent. Our people were performing the best. We insulated ourselves from the Great Depression because of their greed and racism. They wouldn't allow us to bank with them. So we didn't fall into the folly of this capitalist system going down the toilet. Black people make Cadillac hot. Black people had the cash to buy Cadillacs. See, that's what I'm saying. That's like putting blood on the doorpost. Sometimes racism works against them. And the Most High is starting to make me realize no weapon formed against you will prosper. They're going to repeat history. They're repeating their own recent history with Nazi Germany. Hitler failed because instead of trying to build a republic, he tried to become an emperor. And the problem with white men is, as much as they hate niggas, they're jealous of each other. They just try to find an excuse. I hate you because you're a Catholic. I hate you because you're a faggot. I hate you because you're a Christian. I hate you because you're Jew. No, you hate because you're a hater. You hate because you're an uncivilized caveman that when more aristocratic, sophisticated white men get done fucking your wife because you're a knuckle dragging idiot. Can you imagine somebody telling you, I'm going to give you a potato and faith in white Jesus to go fight the Crusades, the Reconquista. We're going to try to reclaim Jerusalem. Now, while you're away, your wife is going to say, Friar Robbie, yes, my sister, I struggleth with temptations of the flesh. You do, sister? My husband has been away for 6 months. Well, he's helping to build the realm. The Lord is going to bless him. At least the Muslims had a better deal. They like, nigga, if you die for Allah, you're going to get 70 virgins. Now, y'all can claim that's sexist as a motherfucker, but that's motivation, nigga. 70? But I would be like, nigga, that's cap. You can't even find 70 virgins in high school, my nigga. How you going? And hold on. And here's the thing, brothers, we got self-esteem, so we don't need women to be virgins. But white boys, they be like, oh my God. The first thing they want to ask a woman, you know, how many guys have you been with? But what they're really asking is, how many mandingos have you let rearrange them guts? Whether it was in college or whether it's at your job. That's really what they want to know. Man, all the Mexican, look, listen, when I got separated, there was this one Mexican chick. She told me, and this is without me even being awake. She just said it in her own way. She said, you know, one thing I don't like about Mexican dudes, and this is from her mouth, they'll listen to rap music. Because like here in Texas, they'll claim that they're with H-Town and all this. They can rap. They can even have black homeboys. But she said, when my husband and I got divorced, he was literally crying. He said, just promise me one thing, Melissa. What's that? Please don't sleep with a black man. And that's from a passive-aggressive Mexican. So can you imagine these white dudes? Unless they into that freaky, kinky shit, which a lot of them are, they'll sit here and get a divorce of you DMing a black man, of you. Do you know how many white women probably done got beat like the Passion of Christ for just liking some shit that's black on social media? Because we hear how vile they come in our spaces and talk, right? Or when you come into their spaces, it's like they're obsessed with black people day in and day out because they're trying to deflect from the fact that they have insecurity about whether they're going to be able to hold on to property in the future. So in true form, they're trying to reconstitute and shrink the middle class to give mediocre white men a job. Oh, now they might be to become a border patrol agent. Oh, if they go rebuild Gaza, they can send some of that white trash over there and they can get these balloon salaries and they can feel good about themselves. But the reason why they look scared around us, have y'all ever noticed? A lot of black men know this. You could be just traveling. It'll be a white man and go, hi, how you doing? But he'll turn like 3 colors. He'll turn pink, potato red, then purple. But he won't stay white. And I'm like, why is this motherfucker so nervous? Why is he so nervous? Because you know what it is? When you're a thief, I'm going to be honest with you. I sweat every time a creditor sends me a email or they send me something in the mail. Just now I went to check my mail. I said, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus because I know what's going to happen when I open that shit up. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I owe these motherfuckers. This ain't a closed account. See, these motherfuckers is like, we're going to wait for 7 years and the debt's going to fall. Nah, motherfucker. What happened is we knew y'all owed us, but we weren't even really tripping off of it. You feel me? We weren't really tripping off of it because we were like, we know we need reparations, but y'all keep telling us that y'all are different from your ancestors, that racism is over with. I see Michael Jordan dunk a basketball, even though y'all probably giving him 10 or 1% of the proceeds at first because he's the face. So they figured it out. They like, if we put Negroes as the face of products, not only can we absolve some of our guilt publicly so we don't totally look like hypocrites, but we'll still make the lion's share of the money. So the way I look at it, this is how I describe white liberals. Imagine you got a white person. They got food in their stomach, food in their refrigerator. They got cable that works. They got aircon, but they're a greedy little selfish fuck. But they're a hypocrite, as you say, Brother Talent. So what they do is they see a homeless person of color, in our case, a foundation of Black America. And the government says we got a program set aside to help these people that need help, not because they don't have the ability, but because systematically they've been sabotaged. And it's been to this degree of greed that this man just needs a little bit of assistance so he can have the strength and the energy to go out and find a job. We're going to offer a meal. It's the least we can do. We stole the idea from the Black Panthers, but at least this is government funded. So then this white person says, what are they having over there, buddy? Oh, I heard that they're going to have steak and potatoes. Can you get me a plate? Now, somebody like me would be like, you greedy devil. What the fuck is your problem? This is what we're saying. You're sitting lavishly with food in your stomach that you haven't even finished digesting. And you got a refrigerator full of food from a job that you probably already got from affirmative action, white woman. And you probably got food stamps from our tax dollars. So it's never enough. So now they're like, but I'm ashamed to get in the line because I'm going to stand out like a sore thumb. I'm going to look like the hypocrite that I am standing in this line that's meant for other people. So what you do is you tell somebody, okay, you get an extra plate and I'll give you a butter biscuit. You go ahead and open up this nonprofit. We're going to put you as the face of it. We're going to give you 1%. There goes, Brother Talent. Some of these niggas is doing it for 1% and 2%. Eric Adams. And some of the niggas like, well, can you blame me? I mean, this is going to give me a little bit extra. Yeah, nigga. But now, since you let one white person get over, next thing you know, they all are just sitting to the side talking about, yeah, we support more government programs to help these people because they're able to double dip and eat. And that's why I say that's the folly of it, is we allow people to be part-time minorities getting full-time benefits. And when I would go into some of the democracy spaces, white Hispanics would stutter like Porky Pig. They go, abadi, 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 because they'll start speaking French, talking about we. And I say, what's on your birth certificate? If it says white on your birth certificate or your driver's license, politely, I just need you to sit down and be quiet because you're playing games. You are trying to wash white. You're basically every generation in your family, you're hoping it's like, you know, when you put a load of clothes in a washing machine, if you put too much soap but not enough water, you won't wash all the way. You may have to keep washing. And that's literally when the first instance of the term whitewash didn't have to do with information. It had to do with turning a Native American into a white person. I remember reading it in a book as a little kid. It said it took 7 generations for them to consider a Native person white. And I didn't understand what that meant. Because they were talking about the 1-drop rule. It was one of those rare instances in school where they actually told a little bit of truth, but then they just skipped past it. didn't really expand upon that. Because I'm like, I don't know about Native Americans, but I see Clint Eastwood killing Mexicans in the cowboy movies that my dad watches, and he laughs at, All in the Family and Sanford and Son, and we see Dr. Bill Cosby, who's an honorary doctorate representing Black excellence, and the civil rights footage looks like it's in black and white, so racism is over. All of my teachers growing up were white. All of my principals were, till I got to high school. So that means these white women were given job preference through affirmative action. Have y'all noticed, if you look back, anybody, I was born in 78, anybody in the 80s and the 90s, when you think about it, before all the white people did white flight out of your neighborhood when you reach puberty, they allowed these people to work in our communities, but yet they claim they're scared of us. They work around us, but they're so scared. All these white women are so scared of Negroes, but they can work as teachers. They can work as administrators. Hell, they could even be the manager at your grocery store. They could be the manager at your McDonald's. And then they bring all these immigrants over here and have them get jobs in your community. Am I lying? Am I the only one that saw this? And when I say immigrants, I ain't even talk about African immigrants. I'm talking about who we talking about. It's enough to make my colon power. But you know what? I'm going to stop babbling. I'm going to give a shout out to everybody that's in the space. And now we're going to get back on accord. Brother Talent, I appreciate you being in here. I hope you can stay as long as you can. I'm going to give the mic back to you, and then I'm going to give the floor to King Silk, and then I'm going to give it to Sister Cultivating. So Brother Talent, you have the floor.
Yeah, good bill, beloved. And shout out to the family in the space. King is really dope. It's one of the teachers on that side. So everything that I heard you say just now bothered me, not because I don't agree, but because we are continually like kids in the playground, or let's say like my daughter, and we're trying to fit shapes in the boxes that are not made for them to fit in. It's never going to make sense. This shit is just unrighteous. It's a contradiction. We see the USAID with all this money. I mean, I'm in New York, $22 billion for illegal migrants. Like, there's another video that just came out, $2.7 trillion from Medicare and Medicaid went overseas to people that didn't deserve it. So we are in a reality where, like I was telling you early, 1865, 1934, economically sanctioned, boxed out of the economy. The New Deal happens, right? The Federal Reserve Act, the Gold Act, all of those things occur because America could not sustain itself on its own, right? Negroes were circulating our economy. I mean, our businesses within the infrastructures of the towns that we had across the nation. Not saying that they all were thriving, not saying that they all were successful, but I guarantee they better than projects that we live in now, right? I guarantee that they were a lot better in terms of our collective unity and how we were able to mobilize and economically support one another, completely different than what we've experienced now. But there is no interest of the government, so to speak, or political interest. I don't believe on either side, the right or the left, because the right is about power and the left is about sharing, right? On the right side, we are literally going to have to become American nationalists, which I'm not against, capitalists, which is I'm not against, and compete for market share against the industries that run this country as we build and support our own. And on the left, it would be based on sharing resources and playing minority politics and allow our plight and our story to be used to give access to opportunities to everyone else. It's just it's a dance that we are still mastering as descendants of formerly enslaved people. It's a political dance. It's a sellout dance where niggas been selling us out. It's a benign neglect reality that we exist in. But I would think most importantly, it's the lack thereof of interest in us. This government and the people that run in politics know who we are. They know who David Stewart is too. So if there's no interest in the economic stability and upward mobility of the government in itself, making sure that it doesn't sabotage, hinder, or go against Negroes, then we would have seen it in the last 60 years. And not we still getting 1.3% of federal contracts, and we are less than 0.5% of wealth. So this is the way the system is set to work. And we are literally like kids and adolescents trying to put squares into circles or trying to fit shapes in areas and boxes that it will never make sense because it was not built to make sense. We are victims, and it's okay to say such, in a country that has never focused on making sure that we were stable or even to enforce protections and growth for our community. And it's going to come back to how it's always been, us that's going to have to do the work, us that's going to have to protect our community, us that's going to have to move ourselves forward. And I'm a land.
Thank you, brother. King Sick, what's good? Welcome to the stage. Brother Zaire spoke highly of you. You have the floor.
Yeah, I've been listening for a minute. What up, Varsity? What's happening? I really don't even know what to say. Everything has been said about the subject y'all are talking about. But as far as the small hats, oh shit. Y'all know not to call me in no conversation about the hats. Because I tells the truth about the hats. Shit, where do we start? Y'all know about this guy named Stephen Currier? I know everybody in here knows Stephen Currier, right? Stephen Currier, Currier. Everybody knows about him, right?
That name doesn't ring a bell, but go ahead. We're listening to you.
All right. What about the Council of United Civil Rights Leadership?
That name sounds familiar. Yeah.
All right. So, where do we start with the small hats? And specifically when talking about are Jewish people successful because they don't have a victim mentality? Of course they don't have a victim mentality. Because they are the people who have positioned themselves to play the victim. Meanwhile, you see what's happening in Gaza, they don't look very victim-like to me. And so this is just religious white supremacy. This thing called Zionism, Israel, or the Judaic faith begins in Africa, whereas, Zionism, that shit come from Europe. So, whenever it comes to the small hats, I got to be pinned down to a certain conversation about them where I'll just be all over the place. But I was listening for y'all to kind of get back on the conversation of the Jewish community and perhaps the psychological, behavioral implications of what they perpetuate on our community, because a lot of who we are comes from a lot of what they put us through. So I don't want to just be rambling. I'll wait till the conversation comes back to the subject.
Actually, brother, for Mike, even our Jewish brother right here, he's having respect. He's like, man, he ain't coming off the mic. He may have some smoke for you. I don't know. So go ahead, brother. This is your chance to teach. Like, we're going to put on our thinking caps while you talk about the small hats.
I appreciate it. Well, just one second.
Shout out to everybody in the space. Go ahead.
Well, the thing is that first of all, we have to separate the Zionists from quote unquote the Jews. There are a lot of good Jewish people who are out there right now fighting against what these Netanyahu's guys are really pushing and promoting in Israel, and as far as in policies that America gives. I'm not sure if the people are familiar with a brother by the name of Gus Savage. But, sometimes when I do speak, I do like to ask questions and get a little bit of response from the folks who are in the audience, just because I understand how much that allows people to really see exactly who knows who and what and who knows what. Because when we begin to learn and we learn things in the same space together, I think sometimes we can really see the growth that we've made. A lot of times people have conversations and nobody's learned anything. We just gone in and said a whole bunch of shit in a different order, rearranged the same shit. So, the thing that I'm trying to express as far as when it comes to the small hats is a lot of Black society, we have to look between the period of 1880 to 1920. And when you look between 1880 and 1920, again, for anybody who understands American history, and hope, of course, we shouldn't have to walk that far back. We all know what happened in the 1860s, the Civil War, blase, blase, blah, yaza, yah, right? And so when you look at this thing called social stratification, which is, how groups of people and individuals end up in whatever place they are in society. And so you got to imagine how unique the social stratification was of black people in America coming from this thing called the system of slavery. And so the social stratification of these people was such that they came from inhumanity, if you will, into a position to where you had some 400 and some odd black men that were elected to Congress in the southern United States of America post the Civil War. So what does this mean? Well, this was a time in America's history that I feel like has been the most manipulated and the most lied about. Because if people truly understood what happened both during the Civil War, also who killed Abraham Lincoln, the small hats, and why did they kill Lincoln and Kennedy were both killed by the small hats, right? And not just saying it, I can prove it. But the bottom line is that when you sit back and you really truly understand exactly the role of this quote unquote Jewish community here in America, you know, you got to go back to the beginning of the Reformed Jewry in America, where you create Reformed Jewry with a temple.
Okay, Brother
called,
King.
yes, sir.
For people in the slow bus like me, or the people in the back of the class that are following you, can you break down how the small hats, as you put it, were involved in the Civil War and how they were involved in Lincoln's assassination?
Right, that's what I'm going to right now. And so when you understand the beginning of what we call, you know, modern day Jewry in America, you got to look at a synagogue that's out of Charleston, South Carolina. And that synagogue is called Kahal Kadosh Beth Elohim. Kahal Kadosh Beth Elohim was built by slaves. The initials for that, or the abbreviation for that, is KKBH, but it is Kahal Kadosh Beth Elohim. And this is the first Reformed Jewish synagogue built in the United States of America. And when you actually go back and you start looking at the history of Reformed Judaism in America and their participation in slavery, I recommend a book for people to read called The Jewish Confederates. Because when you read this book called The Jewish Confederates, you'll understand the great pride and distinction that many of the Southern Jews had in serving in the racist, white supremacist, and pro-slavery organization known as the Secessionist Confederacy. And the name of that book is called The Jewish Confederates. It's by Robert Rosen. It's a phenomenal book, and it'll definitely shed some light onto an individual who thinks this story about the Jewish community as if the Jewish community has always been sort of these allies of the black community, right? So again, we're dealing with social stratification, 1880, 1920, black people in your relationship to not only American white supremacy. And this is the fallacy of a lot of the black history teachings, is the black history teachings are heavy emphasis on white supremacy. When we can't define something, it was white supremacy. A black person got hurt, that was white supremacy. And, you know, to some degree, shit, it's hard to be wrong when talking about white supremacy, the type of dirty, slimy shit they do, but it's not always white supremacy, right? And this is where the Jewish community falls in. Again, go check out that book. You can click a quick Google search. You'll pop up with this book called The Jewish Confederates. And I think people just even looking at the title of this book and looking at the book cover will be absolutely blown away at the fact that a Jewish man would even write a book about this, and that history like this actually does exist. So, you know, I highly recommend that book. So, but the bottom line is you go back and you study, there's another book called The Colored Aristocracy of St. Louis by Clyde Clamigan. The Colored Aristocracy of St. Louis, for anybody who's taking notes. When you go and you really study this period of 1880 to 1920, you realize, number one, this is the part of the history where we began to become elected leaders in state legislatures. We began to be people who were creating legislation in order to further enhance Black America's ability to prosper. And so there was a group of people who were obviously against this. They formulated a coalition better known as the Ku Klux Klan, right? So people need to understand the Jewish participation in the creation of this thing called the Ku Klux Klan. And in order to do that, you have to be aware of this thing called B'nai B'rith. B'-N-A-I, B'-R-I-T-H. And B'nai B'rith is the forerunner of the ADL. The ADL was created on the backs of black people. And because this is Black History Month, you might want to know about the first black man in history to give testimony against a white person and to get that white person sentenced and convicted to death. And that was in Georgia, in Fulton County, where a Jewish gentleman by the name of Leo Frank, who was arrested, charged, and convicted with the rape and murder of a 13-year-old white girl named Mary Fagan. He tried to attempt to blame this on the Black Night Watchman, to which the whites in that community absolutely did not believe it. The craziest thing, a white person pointing out a nigger and saying he did it, and a group of white people shaking their heads like, nope, it was you. And so this is the first time that you really saw the Jewish media, the New York Times or the New York Times and other publications come out and attempt to create this narrative that it was the Black Night Watchman, Jim Conley, who had raped and murdered this 13-year-old girl in Atlanta, Georgia, as opposed to being the Jewish philanthropist and wealthy member of B'nai B'rith, the forerunner to the Anti-Defamation League. So this is how the Anti-Defamation League was created. During the trial and the lynching of Leo Frank. So that's a whole nother long story within itself. But the bottom line is that until black people go back and we take a look at the 1880 to 1920 period, this 40 years, where after this thing called slavery, white folks had underestimated black people. These niggas ain't shit. They can't do nothing. Well, quickly they learned that they were absolutely incorrect. And after all of the innovations and all of the engineering and technology and science and math and medical prowess of black inventors and scientists, et cetera, white America was left with a new understanding about who the hell these black people were that had been solving the problems of the dominant white society for 300 and some odd years. They were engineers. We call them slaves, but they were engineers. Engineers solve problems. And so when the dominant white society saw that, oh shit, black folks been solving our problems for 3 centuries. If we actually leave them to solve their own problems, they have proven themselves capable to do so. Go back and look at the patent pendings, the patents that were submitted to industry from 1860 to 1940. A large majority of those, nearly 70%, were submitted not just by black folks, but by black men. From everything to the car, mobile refrigeration, the doorknob was invented by Osborne Dorsey. You guys here are black enough, y'all already know what I'm talking about. You can pick up what I'm putting down. And so this is what black people have been charged with for 300 and some odd years, was solving the problems of white folks, the dominant white society, which put black people in a unique position that when given freedom and the opportunity to solve one's own problems, we had nothing but skills to boot. And so this is the reason you get this reformulation and this reamalgamation of white supremacy called Jim Crow, right? But not to go too deep into it, we have to know the contributions of many of the members of the quote-unquote Jewish community, most of whom were immigrants into America from Eastern Europe, which would experience its collapse with Russia, a nation that if Russia had not given the blockades during the Civil War, European nations would have been able to give rearmaments and resupply the Confederacy, and quite possibly your ancestors would have never got free if the European nations who supported the industry of the South would have been able to send their aid, but they weren't. Because the Tsar of Russia issued an order and sent his navy here to form a blockade to prevent such aid from arriving in the southern shores of America to help the Confederates. So when early 1900s rolls around and we see that Russia experiences this revolution at the hands of the Bolsheviks, who were funded by Wall Street, you'll find a great book by Anthony Sutton called How Wall Street Funded the Bolshevik Revolution. It's a great piece of information. So you'll understand there's no difference between capitalism, socialism, and communism. All of these things have been funded by Wall Street. You know, the old saying goes, follow the money. And so we can make our mouth say anything. And people will get into these intellectual debates about socialism, communism, capitalism, and they'll tell you all the differences of it. But if the nigga who wrote the check was from Wall Street, and he's the one who funded Lenin, Trotsky, and the rest of these Russian Jewish Bolsheviks, then what the hell is the difference between capitalism and communism if the Bolshevik Revolution was funded by capitalists? And so, you know, when you go back and you actually look and see the handprints of things like Adam Schiff, who was a co-founder of the NAACP, but also one of the co-founders of the Federal Reserve, well, shit, how does the NAACP have a money problem? If the same man who was responsible for starting the goddamn place they print all the money was also one of the founders of the Help Niggas program, you would think that they would just help niggas by transferring some of the dollars that he's founded in the Make the Dollars program. But see, that makes too much sense. That sounds too much like right. And when you start making sense in a society of fools, that's when you become outcasted. Right? So before I start making too much sense and get outcasted in the conversation, I'm gonna go and hit the mute button on my microphone and sit back and listen.
That was a lot
No,
of knowledge.
you're good. You're good, brother. I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I'm gonna say for myself, I'm kind of like TSA at the airport. Everybody's getting scanned. I don't care if you're a doctor. I don't care if you're literate. I don't care if you're a Catholic. I don't care if you're Jewish. Because see, at the end of the day, all you had is white men with a religious conviction to justify being greedy capitalists. Some white men justify being greedy capitalists by being Catholics. You know, what's interesting is you had a lot of the Catholics who helped the Nazis escape Nazi Germany. So what I realize is, like, you got all these white people that play good cop, bad cop, but at the end of the day, it's real simple. You're either property or a property owner. The only difference is these dumb Christian serfs. And I'm starting to realize from a psychological standpoint, I think some of them got daddy issues because they're always trying to project to us, you're fatherless. You don't know who your father is. Well, it's worse to have your father molest you, beat your mother, not be there, and drive an F-150. That turns you into a narcissist. What makes you the type of psychopath can do what Donald Trump is doing. These guys are bipolar. One minute they hate Jews, then the next minute they're like, we need to support Israel. You know, it's like a love-hate. It's like a love-hate relationship. And at the end of the day, you know, I'm just going to be as smart as a fifth grader. You know, that's another thing Tariq was talking about the other day. And when you were speaking so eloquently. It was something that he said that always stuck out in my mind that I think is true. There's a difference between white extremists and white supremacists. So whether it's a white extremist that happens to be Jewish, that's one thing. You got white extremists that are Catholics that think they're Knights Templar. You got, because for them, it's about classism. For Negroes, you got classism and racism running concurrently. And that's why it makes it, to Brother Talent's point, and he kind of echoes what Neely Fuller's sentiment is, if you don't understand racism, white supremacy, everything else will fool you. I know you're speaking from a righteous cause. The only thing that I draw caution is when people that know they were the deplorables in their own community, these neo-Nazi meth head fucks that are the fuck up in their community that mommy should have swallowed, and because they don't fit in, and because, think about it, they're not even good enough to get the mediocre set-asides for mediocre white men, they just turn into extremists, and they start following on the same thing that the Romans did. It was the Catholics' fault that they didn't believe in usury. And they sit here like, I told you, white folks, historically, they have been excellent actors. They're good at being phony. Oh, it sounds like Halo and shit. They act like they're this holy Catholic, but they're sitting here having Diddy parties. They're sitting here struggling with homosexuality. They're sitting here, giving money to strippers and stuff like that and gambling. So what the Jews said was, shit, since you are not allowing us, to Brother Talent's point, to expand our business interests, well, then guess what? We're going to lend what we have to these hypocritical Roman Catholics. So it's not that they can't get a loan, because they weren't even going to charge them interest on a loan. It's just these people wanted loans to do things that were debaucherous, that went against their own Catholic teachings. Sound familiar, right? So if you do that long enough, you're going to allow somebody to get more wealth than you, because you're basically allowing them to be the fathers of banking. And that was the flaw of the Republic then, and why the empire thrived in debauchery, because corruption, absolute power corrupts, but also when you have elected officials that can be compromised for money, for shekels, you don't have a government. That's the same thing. They keep talking about drain the swamp, drain the swamp. I'm like, everybody's the swamp thing. It's like talking about, man, my Cadillac isn't working right. Okay, we need a new election. So you're going to get rid of a few solenoids, get rid of a few sensors. The system is still the same. The only thing is the components that keep the system working and all of the systems to work in sync with each other, sometimes they need to be replaced. And that's where, so sometimes when it needs to be replaced, people will argue about politics. But the system itself doesn't change. It just transforms. When they need to trick these ignorant white folks that are basically Mayflower suckers, filled with racism, that's all they got, they just change the appearance. Obama was too much for them. They said, okay, we're going to get rid of a black paint job. We're going to paint it white. We're going to remind you that this, listen, they got so degenerate, they went to the Capitol and took a shit and a piss in a place that's supposed to be secular sacred. That's why I say now in 2025, I just don't trust any white people. I'm not racist. I've dated interracially. I've believed in we are the world. You know what I'm saying? I've traveled in the military. So I'm not coming to this conclusion as somebody that hasn't had cumulative experiences. I'm just saying out of wisdom. Like Neuralink. Neuralink, they say translates into 666. I think there's something spiritual going on. In addition to your point that they're deceivers, I know there's Jewish people that have blood on their hands. Like you say, some of them that aren't Zionists, whatever. But here's the thing that I ask, and I was talking to a brother earlier. We were in the back channel long before the space happened. I said, did Jewish people have to go to colored-only restrooms? So you get these white folks that are racist that hate us. That's why I say racist. They'll be like, we need to get together and trauma bond about the Jews because they're really Arabs that blended in. The point is, you've lived side by side with these people for so long, and you keep, for some reason, getting Me Too'd by the Jews financially. That, you know how I don't really believe all the Me Too accusations. That's kind of how I don't believe this shit with these white supremacists, because they will sit here and fight to get Jewish money historically, because it wasn't about Jewish money. It was about money, fool. It was about corrupt kings and other corrupt people and secret societies. Some of them happen to be Jewish because of their religious belief, but they all believed in white supremacy and practiced white supremacy. And what it is you got mediocre white men who are beta that are fighting with dominant stoic white men to share the spoils of war. And the funny thing is, the only motherfuckers that really benefit are white women. They'll be like, pussy, don't fail me now. Throat, don't fail me now. I'm with this trailer park loser. Let me get dressed up, spray on some perfume. If Donald Trump grabbed me by the pussy, I'll get $100,000 to be quiet and $20,000 for a fuck. I'm tired of fucking this limp dick chump that all he can do is tell nigger jokes and complain. I want power. I don't care which party gives me set-asides. If the Democrats are going to give me give me set-asides, great. They're going to give me job preference, great. At the end of the day, the only religion I practice is white supremacy. I'm just not a white extremist. So you got white extremists pointing out to you the paper trail of other white extremists that happen to be Jewish. But at the same point in time, you got Catholics that'll fuck us over, or atheists, or God knows, or now it's just patriotism. Patriotism is the new religion. And one thing I've seen about white folks is very scary, how they have this pathological groupthink. It seems like they are easily swayed by mythological, magical thinking. Think about it. These people were so desperate financially after World War I. Even if people want to throw in a couple of Jewish bankers, or you had the Bush family, you had other people support the Nazis. The Nazis actually learned from America. But here's my point. I'm talking about the people, the populace being propagandized. They were so desperate financially, and you had liberals at the time pushing the same LGBTQ shit, being the Athenians again, being hedonistic, just giving into debauchery, and then not thinking about the working class. Sound familiar, right? And they were supposed to be paying reparations. So you got all this economic tension pulled up, and you got people who are very patriotic, but they haven't bought into the occult. So the way they were able to mix it up into a very sweet cocktail was, let's take magical thinking about our lineage and where we're from, saying we're the ancient Athenians, and quote the Romans for talking about, the Germans were these great warriors. And it gave these people a sense of not only nationalism, but to feel like their bloodline was something special. So that's how he was able to get people from every cross section of society to get on the same shit of music. But this is what I don't get. Man, you can have these people that are very educated, that have blonde hair and blue eyes, listen to a man that's under 6 feet. Tell them they need to be over 6 feet and be blonde hair and blue eyes. Listen to a white man, Joseph Goebbels, that I just found out he was shorter than Cat Williams. This ninja was 5 foot tall with a club foot and greasy black hair like an Italian, telling everybody that they're not racially pure. The same thing with Heinrich Himmler. They didn't even look like what they were selling. The only thing they knew is these people are pro-German. So that's what the Third Reich was about. It's about the Germans need to get pure and all other white people are mongrels. And that's why the neo-Nazis learned. The German Bund party over here, the German immigrants here, they were Nazi-leaning. And Hitler was like, if he would have won the war, he said America would have been perfect because they already practiced segregation and they wanted to get on that whole myth. They created this myth of racial purity. Some of the soldiers that he talked about were ideal Germans. They were part Jewish. There were people who were Jewish that were Nazis. You even had some of them that were SS. And then when they wanted to pick and choose, this is how you know it was all bullshit and white supremacy. He would make people honorary Aryans. They even made Asians honorary Aryans. As long as you're going to help us maldistribute resources, we will allow you to be white. In that case, it was a white German of good ancestry and good stock. They could just, it was already a mythological lineage anyway, so why not just keep alternate? I'm white and I say so. So you got a bunch of educated people that because they were angry, because they needed something to believe in, you had a whole group of white people follow this madman, just like you have a whole group of white people with magical thinking. That's why Constantine was brilliant. He said, if with this symbol I will rule, but also that's when they said we need to start pushing white Jesus. We need to make white Romans feel, for white men to get out of tribalism, we need to start Christianizing everybody. Whether that's with the sword or whether that's somebody who has a gift for gab. We need to Christianize them all because we're going to get rid of the tribalism. And now they're on one accord, which to Brother Talent's point, that's why we need to be on one accord. We are foundational Black Americans. We are Americans. But you know what? This is a Babylon system. This system is global now. It's like the beast system in the Bible, in my opinion. So I'm going to keep my eyes out on Jewish people. But when I hear some of I'll listen to you teach me. But when these white supremacists try to trauma bond, they ain't fooling me. They'll be like, yeah, the problem is the Jews. Okay, you get rid of the Jews and then what? You still going to maldistribute the resources. You still don't want to be equal with us. And all you are, the only reason why you're a neo-Nazi, because it was a mutation. You had some of the Nazis come over here during Project Paperclip. And when they came over here, our government was afraid, to your point, that they were going to be like the cause of Russian Revolution here. So what they did was the what's it called? What is it called? It was like the FBI of their day. Before it was the FBI, they just started calling them communists, even though they were national socialists. So what they did was they started allying themselves with the Christian right. They said these knuckle dragon white nationalists, we can take over their shit by pushing patriotism and again magical thinking. So they start teaching the white Christians that they're God's chosen people and all of that bullshit. And the Nazis infiltrated and got power. And from my other research too, I'm seeing, man, they had contingency plans in South America. That's why I'm not surprised that you have a lot of Nazis over there. You have a lot of fascism in Brazil and Argentina and all these places. So they didn't stamp out Nazism. They just went underground because they understood the hypocrisy of the whole system. You know, you're going to sit here and criticize Hitler for throwing Jews in the ghetto. He's like, well, I got it from you. You throw blacks in the ghetto. You still enslave them as sharecroppers. You treat them like shit. They could come over here and get more than a French kiss from a French broad. Enough to make your colon pile. Yeah. So this whole system to me, at least in America being the whore that sits on the water, because we're the only nation that has a statue on the water. I'm just quoting Revelations. I ain't trying to be unpatriotic. I'm just telling you what I personally believe. That when they say the whore on the water is slain, all the merchants of the earth will weep. I mean, the Statue of Liberty got her legs spread like she's at the gynecologist table. She's the can woman. She'll fuck a Mexican, an African, a Japanese man, a Persian. It don't matter. A Russian. And Uncle Sam is like, it's like my 600-pound life. They are just bloated. It's about the government's too big. No, you choosing between oligarchy and corporations, which was kind of the point you were leading into. But whether it's Jewish, listen, if they allowed Jewish people to cuck them, it's because they were greedy. Because Jewish people are letting us know these white motherfuckers are racist hypocrites that just care about money. They'll stop bitching about race and religion if you give them money in their pocket and a white woman to suck their dick. Shit, because they learned that with us. They said, how they conquer Africa? White women, fried chicken in the Bible. They pulled up there to the continent. They had one of those comfort women that they had. And them chiefs were dumb enough to be bedazzled by something that they thought was different and exotic, knowing that this was not even a woman that had any rights, and they even treated well, but it worked with seduction. So I just see it like it's been a religious civil war with them, but somehow when they get done fighting each other, whether it was Jewish gangsters, Irish gangsters, Italian gangsters, some kind of way, they all end up coming together, working together, doing business. Hell, what do they call that club in Harlem? The Cotton Club? I'm gonna land my plane there. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I just, in my spirit, I feel like when I hear some of these white supremacists push anti-Semitism, I know that it's followed by nigger. And my whole thing is I pray to Yahshua that if I have to pull my rifle, that my aim is good. I don't care if you got a swastika, a yarmulke, a Knights Templar shield. If your aim is to treat my mother like Sonia Massey, off with your head. If your aim is to say Sandra Bland committed suicide, off with your head. If your aim is to think that you could do the trifecta with Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd, the litmus test for me to know if your brain is fried is if you sit here and tell me George Floyd died of fentanyl. Like we didn't even see what we saw. It's like what Brother Talent said earlier, it's power through hypocrisy. That was just so eloquently put. That was a bar, my brother. So their hypocrisy is they'll work with Jews and then criticize Jews because at the end of the day, they want to marry into their families because they can be bought. Everything in America can be bought. They'll even sell their mother. And you know what? Trump is doing gender reassignment with the Senate and the Congress. They ain't got no balls to stand up to them because they're political prostitutes. Just like all those Arab leaders over there. It's Saturday. Was it shocking? I haven't even checked. I haven't seen anything on my feed talking about Saudi Arabia and Iran and everybody got all brolic and they want to, man, Israel is smacking them around like Joe Pesci. You know how Joe Pesci was a little small gangster? Funny how. That's what Joe Pesci is saying to them Arab bitches. Funny how. What the fuck makes me funny? They ain't about to do shit. Gaza's about to be like prime real estate. They don't know how to take a hint. Like niggas do when they said, we're going to build a freeway through your neighborhood. We profile you. We done did police brutality. Niggas be like, man, we need to get the fuck up out of here. Not we shall overcome. We either going to fight back or we going to fucking move, nigga. I'm moving wherever the MF original is. I'm like, baby, we need to split. This is just too much. These motherfuckers are using drones to kill niggas. And then they're going to bring their big brother America to come bully. So it's very telling to me that some of those Arab leaders have been bought and sold. They're political prostitutes. And they all want to profit from that canal that they're building. They got plans for a canal. Look, listen, they got plans and you're on the menu. That's my message to the Palestinians. If they wanted to have a two-state solution, they could. It's like your wife telling you, baby, I have cramps. I don't feel like sleeping tonight. It's like, Israel just kept making excuses why they wouldn't give no pussy. Can we have a two-state solution? You guys just keep taking more and more land. Duh, they don't want you there because they believe in diplomacy with force.
Now, Robbie, that's not what actually happened. They had plenty of opportunities. I agree with most of what you said until you get into the Zionism. The Zionism.
No, I wasn't talking about Zionism. I was talking about capitalism. I'm talking about people taking hints. It's like, listen.
Okay.
Let's just follow my metaphor. If you get raped, then fine, you've been legitimately Me Too. No, you haven't been Me Too, you've been raped. This is an example of Me Too. If you're Harvey Weinstein, it's rape. But if you're Brad Pitt, it's a good time. Listen, you don't have to guess what's on a man's mind. If he gives you something to drink, and then he starts rubbing your leg. Are you going to go any further? No.
But they've been the ones, Robbie. They've said it. They've told you who they are. They are who we thought they were. They said they were jihadists, and they're behaving like jihadists. That's what the Palestinians did as well. So don't leave that part out. Is all I'm saying, Robbie. They are who we thought they were.
Sir, respectfully, when it's your turn, I will allow you to speak. And to be honest with you, like I said, I don't differentiate between any white supremacists. That's just me. But for the sake of this room and me honoring, I don't even think the other brother's still here. Okay, so I hadn't totally embarrassed him. The farmer hasn't come off his mic yet, so I can't be totally off code. And I didn't want to be fearful because, like people say, if you put Jew in the title, people be like, "Oh my God!" I'm be honest with you. My greatest fear was some of these white supremacists coming in here with 1488, talking about, "Listen, brother, we're all Americans." You know, and what you need to understand is the Jews, man. The Jews are my problem. The Jews, man. And I'm like, dude, is your boss Jewish? Yes. Are you subscribed? Do you watch Jewish movies? Yes. Have you fell in love with a Jewish actor? Yeah, because she's a white woman, fool. Get the fuck out of here. You just a pocket watching fuckboy. You wake up every day hating on Jeff Bezos, hating on Elon Musk, but think he's going to drain the swamp. They are the biggest suckers. It's like, if your friend invites you to the strip club and he's a baller, he's not inviting you along so you can have a good time. He's inviting you so you could be his do boy and watch him have a good time. That's how I see Elon Musk. When Elon Musk and Trump were having that conversation, I didn't hear them talking about poor white people, and they damn sure were talking about black people, but I was listening. They plan on building smart cities. That is going to be the Jetsons. All you're going to see is rich white people up in the sky, so they don't have to be bothered with the stench of poor white trash complaining. At that point, they're gonna be like, "Surprise, motherfucker, we don't have votes no more. we got a one world emperor. What makes you think you should get paid more than a Filipino?" That's the day I pray to white and Japanese Jesus I could just live long enough to see. I'd be like, "Look, motherfucker, you didn't pay us reparations, but now the MAGA hats are 50% off, motherfucker, because whether it was Jewish supremacy or rich South Africaner supremacy, y'all got a class problem. That's y'all bullshit. Who's a blue blood? Who belongs to a certain fraternity?" And then they'll complain, "Well, if the bloodline was Jewish, whatever." You ain't done nothing about it. To me, at least the Arabs are out there getting turned into like grease stains in the desert. Some of them. But all these motherfuckers do, I told you, we sitting on a bunch of C4 in America. And what is C4? That's what I call crypto crying Christian crackers, or for political correct purposes, crypto crying Christian cowards. They think they're smarter than us. They invest in speculation. They get ripped off by a Russian scammer or a Jewish scammer. That they go, "Oh my God, this Jewish guy ripped me off. Trump ripped me off." So then they start crying. They get in spaces. They spend all day crying. You get Sir Ludwig's bitch ass trying to come into black spaces. Look, guys, I'm your friend. It's the Jews, man. It's the Jews. That's all we got to do. We get rid of the Jews and we don't have to pay you reparations. I'm in white heaven. Nah, what about them reparations? You're going to have to run that. You know what I'm saying? You're going to have to run that. You know what I'm saying? Because, yeah, you're only talking about Jews now because you realize, like, fuck, I'm such a simp. I gave up all my money. Now all I can do is cry and bitch and complain. And then after they get hooked on drugs and feel like a loser and hit the rock bottom, all of a sudden they become a Christian. I just want to tell you that I'm 3 years sober. They act like they need participation trophies. Then they start telling you these weird origin stories I don't believe. When I was 5, I was born with a tumor on my head, and my mother was on drugs, and my father. Y'all ever gone into mental health spaces? I don't believe white folks are good at being phony online. They'll start exaggerating their origin story like it's Marvel, all to say to this point, stop playing victim, nigger, because somehow I became a doctor. Somehow, you know what I'm saying? Look, the Tethers lie about being the Prince of Zabumba, and these crackers lie about, I don't know, being a part of some trust fund family. And then you do some digging, you're like, nah, okay, fine. You ain't stuck in a trailer but you got a job just like everybody else, and all you want is, regardless of whether it's a Jewish white man or a Catholic white man, you want a white man to look out for your best interest with the coded language because you think your birth rates are declining. So if you need to use religion to justify genocide, you'll do it. If you need to use economic Darwinism to justify it, you'll do it. If you want us to stop talking about racism, stop practicing it. It's that simple. I'll land my plane. I love everybody on the stage. Sorry for being long-winded. I hope that serves as a warning to any of the 1488 crowd that may want to come in here and think they're going to trauma bond with us. And then they say shit like the Holocaust never happened.
They're not gonna come here.
No, this what gets me when they say shit, even though they say fucked up shit about Jewish people, when people try to justify killing women and children and shit, I'd be like, man, you are a special piece of shit. That's what Sir Ludwig, I had to kick his bitch ass out of my space one time. Like, because if you would justify men and women getting raped and Hitler doing what he did, because that's why I try to warn y'all about white men in general. Stoic white men will let you starve. They don't care. Shit, they let motherfuckers in Holland starve. You had people who kissed Hitler's ass and Hitler didn't give them no help. Do y'all understand what I'm saying? Tens of thousands of people starved and these motherfuckers just, I don't know, ate Black Forest cake and Venus Special. They didn't give a fuck. So if you don't think a crisis can happen in America and some of these people won't care if your lights and water are off, if it's on your side of town, if it's a certain zip code, I've even seen that where I've lived in different places. Wherever the rich area is, oh man, them lights get cut on quick. Do y'all know what I'm talking about? Let there be rolling blackouts or something happen. The people who pay the most taxes, who have the most influence over your elected officials, not your vote, trust me, they get taken care of. And I'm thinking, that's what I'm paying attention to. When they talk about these smart cities, is that a no nigger zone? Instead of niggas, they're going to have robots and they're going to make sure it's for the select few people that they want there to be like the gods of the world. And then everybody else is kind of like, they're either in them 15-minute cities or they're in prison or you're an organ donor. That's how I see the future. And the only thing that bothers me every day is, and this has nothing to do with politics, because I didn't really care too much about Trump. I wasn't worried about it. But Elon is the game changer. When Elon threw up that Nazi salute and he has as much money as he has, I feel like Samuel L. Jackson in Star Wars. When he was like, when Anakin was like, no, he needs to go to trial. What did Samuel Jackson say? No, he don't deserve to live. He's too dangerous to live. And then the nigga get his hand cut off. I'm not trying to say it without saying it, but like I say, if y'all are too comfortable, when I say y'all, I'm not just talking about people in the space. I'm talking about motherfuckers that claim they're patriotic to America. If they can't tell that some of these people are still globalists themselves and looking out for themselves, I don't know what else to say. They just may use fascism almost like religion to make sure they have enough lackeys to do the legwork for them while they solidify more power. With that being said, I'm going to go to cultivating. I'm going to go to La Farmer. I'm going to go to Rivi Era. Then I'm going to go to Brother Talent. Cultivating, you have the stage.
Hey, sorry, I'm cooking. Anyways, Jewish people successful because they don't have a victim mentality. Well, I think they do have a victim mentality. I think the reason they are successful is because they stick with each other. They don't, they put each other on. And that's something that a lot of us got to learn from them, honestly. If you want to learn any habit at all, that should be it. So I think that's the only reason they are successful, in my opinion. But other than that, everything you say sort of kind of was on point until you say, do you consider me as a tether? I'm just curious, Robbie.
Okay. When I say tether, basically in English translation, I mean coon. I don't care if you're a coon from the continent, homegrown coon here, or coon from the Caribbean. Anybody who practices anti-Black racism, like you say, that doesn't want to be a team player, that believes in not only sabotaging the progress of our people, but they're like willing. Like white folks are not even asking for them to audition, you know what I'm saying, to be an anti-black person, but they'll sit there and go out of their way. They're trying to be adopted. They're like the dog they're like the little ugly black dog at the adoption clinic that's
At the
barking the
pound.
loudest. They're like,
Mhm.
and they're like, no,
Take me.
no. The white lady's gonna choose the Mexican over here or the Arab person over here. Like they know they're professional white ass kissers. Because here's the whole point. You're either gonna choose humanity or white supremacy. America could be better than it's ever been. The planet could be better than it's ever been. People can still practice capitalism with some degree of regulation, but that's the point. Money just makes you more of who you are. So even if in theory people think things are supposed to work a certain way, like I said, once I did enough historical digging, I said, oh yeah, these idiots are doing the same thing they did when the Republic fell in Rome. So that's what I'm saying, like they can't be dumb. You got educated people who know all of these things. They can't sit here and say that there aren't similarities between Nazi Germany and America. Forget the political parties. There's just certain things that should be deal breakers. And the fact that they aren't is because you got people trying to achieve the same objective, just with two different philosophies. You got some people who are globalists that believe in corporatized democracy. And then you have other people that are like, nah, I like the idea of me controlling all the wealth and just giving everybody else a sense of patriotism, some games, and have everybody stratified across class so that they fight each other. Because if you control the media and you control the interpretation of the religion, you can pretty much predict how people will be at each other's throat. But nah, I don't wake up in my mind thinking negative things about African people or anybody who's an immigrant. And even when I say tether, I'm not even just talking about melanated people. I'm talking about anybody that practices anti-black racism. Because to my point that I'm trying to tell you, some of the people who were in the minority coalition on the left, they had white on their driver's license. Like they were white Hispanics, white Persian, and they'll tell you, and it's like they have this inferiority or insecurity thing. And the more they are in the presence of like really right-leaning white people, the more anti-black shit they'll say. Oh, they make up 13% of. Trust me, I've been there. That's how I know what I'm telling you. And I think some white people understand psychology. They use that to their advantage because like, okay, I'm dealing with somebody who has low self-esteem. And what it really boils down to is I don't care how successful you are, how much power you have. They know that there's still a racial component there. Hence, some of those rich Arabs over there, they know they're the big dog where they are, but if they come to the UK or they come to America, they got to play nice. Their countries can be sanctioned. They can, in other words, they can go from being wealthy to being a pauper overnight. It'd be like what happened to Kanye, but to a country. Go ahead.
So my question to you, Robbie, is okay. So don't you think in order to move the ladder a little bit to get where your group of people can be where they deserve, don't you think you have to work with the white nationalists as a black nationalist?
No, because the only nation that we're supposed to be upholding is America, which goes back to Brother Talent's point. That is power through hypocrisy. I mean, just think for a second. These people preaching white nationalism, they already live in white communities. If a nigga goes into their neighborhood, you'll get stopped more times than a fake Rolex. Trust me, I'm telling you what I know. That's when I really realized how hypocritical they are. You already live in a white neighborhood. You're only complaining because your numbers have went down from 80% to maybe 60%. That has them panicking. And that's because you promoted this materialism that has white women counting how many babies they have. They're swallowing abortion pills. And you let this go on for generations because you prioritize making money over, family values. So like everything that they project on us, when you really look at it, like, oh my God, these people have they hide drug problems, they hide poverty, they hide the swinger clubs. It's like almost everything that comes out of their mouth as a critique to some other group. It's like if you just sit around as a fly on the wall, you be like, wow, they're supposed to be the flyest couple in America, and they don't even sleep in the same bed, Melania and Donald Trump. He said if a woman is pregnant after she has a baby, she's ugly. That's his prerogative. I guess he can go through women like toilet paper, but for the rest of us mere mortals, and I would think for a woman, she would say, hey man, my worth as a person is more than just giving birth. But that's my point. So now, because their numbers have dwindled, that's the only reason you have these 1488 crowd talking about Jews. The Jews made me do it. The Jews gave me porn. The Jews told me to be a fuckboy and a racist. They taught me race. Listen, after a while, you just like, look, man, you are just a meth head failure that's prone to violence. And that's why you did what you did on J6. And then what made my Colin Powell is Trump being a hypocrite through power, pardoning you when you had black people, once again, save the democracy, even if you think it's flawed. The whole idea of the republic. But my whole point is, if you're headed for self-destruction, I'm not going to stop you. I'm going to go ahead and like flip the vein and be like, go ahead and put that heroin needle in. That's what I'm saying to them. Y'all want to destroy America? Y'all ain't going to pay us reparations anyhow? Okay, then we'll keep the Constitution. We'll alter it some. We just got to rebuild on a new foundation. Because if you burn a building down, if you condemn a building, as long as the foundation is good and as long as it's connected to a healthy grid, you can rebuild. As long as you have the skills to build. That's why we need nation building skills. And you know what? Westerners, every time they walk away from diplomacy and embrace greed or magical thinking, you get the genocidal maniacs you have. And they claim they're the fathers of civilization, but they keep having this civilization cycle of peak and decline, peak and decline, peak and decline. So the question is, on this roller coaster, where are we? I don't think we're on the peak no more. I think we're on a slope. And I think the next the next little hill we go up, it ain't gonna be as big as the one we were just on. The thrill is gone.
Okay. So one last question: do you think Donald Trump is gonna sign the reparation check? I'm sorry. Is he the
listen,
one?
I don't think most foundational Black Americans are holding their breath. Actually, to be honest with you, if we actually did what I suggest, we might get some. If everybody stopped going to work, we would get everybody's attention. But that goes to my whole point. When you look at the productivity of Black and white people, Black people work just as hard. I had a metric that the Department of Labor had that just basically showed that it had like a 60% percentile, and it showed Black and white almost neck and neck. So my whole point is, we're not going to hold our breath. This is not magical thinking that we need Donald Trump to like us or somebody. What we're saying is, we've done an audit. We know what you owe, and we're not going to disappear. We're like the Tea Party. You know, we're like Batman in the original Batman movie. Tell your friends about me. FBA ain't going nowhere. Eventually, I hope there's a death penalty for Conan, because that's really the problem, to be honest with you. You know, there's only certain things that are acceptable in society when you prop up those social norms. So nobody's sitting there holding their breath tomorrow. We want Trump to give us something. What we're saying to the Democrats is, we caught your hand in the cookie jar, and now through spaces like this, we're understanding, okay, we're dealing with white supremacy on both sides. And while you slowly destroy yourself, since we've been artificially put at the bottom, we're going to dodge the javelin, take the kingdom. Like when Saul threw his javelin at King David, he just ducked it, and he still became again king, because this is about God's favor. It's not like we're at the bottom because we haven't worked hard. They've worked strategically to sabotage, and they can only do so much. Because the funny thing is, it's their own greed. They're going to end up fighting each other. Don't y'all see how this is like the 60s all over again? There was an assassination attempt at Trump twice. Whether you think one was staged or not, the point is, they know that there's people who are angry enough that they're willing to carry out political violence. That's my warning to the American Negro. They just bought us a little bit of time by letting Trump win. There was no way to see any change. My point is, don't blame the American Negro. And this time around, we're not turning the other cheek, because there will not be another Tulsa, and there will not be another Rosewood. And the funny thing is, the Department of Justice was created to protect us. And now they're saying white people need protection. That makes my Colin Powell. Brother LaFarmer, what's good?
Yo, peace. What's cracking? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good night to some, good evening to some. Shout out to the wonderful family in the space. I do some stuff up in the Jumbotron, right? And I just heard the conversation going, and it was just something that the guy who was speaking about B'nai B'rith and its origins, I think he hit a home run with that. And I think it's something that I think whenever you're speaking, I always just have this thing, just to try to keep it, copacetic. Whenever you're speaking about the Jewish influence or any involvement, I always believe, for one, you should have your facts in order, meaning that you can substantiate your evidence or your argument with evidentiary information. I think it just makes for a healthier conversation. But one of the other parts that I will say is, he who feels it knows it best, right? So when you're talking about the history, it's very important that you have the context. One of the two things I threw up in the jumbotron, it says this, and it's talking about the Rothschilds roots, right? So many times they go into the Rothschilds and they don't even recognize, the Rothschilds is from England, but I mean Germany. But I wonder, can y'all see that in the jumbotron? I'm not sure if you can maybe see it. I threw it up in the jumbotron. It's the second one from the newest one, the one that I'll be talking about here specifically. But it's talking about the Rothschild roots. And one thing that I had was the Knights of the Golden Circle. A lot of people might not be familiar with the Knights of the Golden Circle, but the Knights of the Golden Circle pretty much is the beginning of all of these things. So it gives you a historical backdrop. Now, when you're talking about international Germanic people, whether they be Jews or not, you're still talking about a certain people from a certain area in the world. So one of these things that I had highlighted that was of significant importance, it says the Knights of the Golden Circle. So when you talk, who are the Knights of the Golden Circle? Well, for one, when you're talking about American chattel slavery, and you're talking about it from from a historical perspective, the Knights of the Golden Circle were the people who were pretty much the plantation owners. They dealt with people who allowed membership from anywhere from a mayor. They preferred, many of them were senators and governors. I don't know how many presidents they got up there, but this was during the Confederacy time, especially. But when you look at the Executive Intelligence Review, you can see clearly on the information, the Rothschild roots, it says the Knights of the Golden Circle combine the network of individuals associated directly with the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, Bernard Brith, and the Jesuits. Practically forming the entire Confederate leadership belongs to the KGC at the point of the secessionist crisis in 1860. It is through tracing the lineage of the KGC that the Ku Klux Klan becomes an understandable phenomenon. So again, we're talking about the Confederacy. We're talking about those people from B'nai B'rith. We're talking about the Scottish Rites of Freemasonry and Jesuits. And this is why I love the Executive Intelligence Review. Shout out to LaRoche Pub for publishing this information and making it freely available and all of the people who paid for it. It says, however, to fully comprehend the significance of the combined relationship of these secret societies, a short historical backdrop is first necessary. So when you go to the next page, slide over, it says by 1860, the secret order had established the what? What did they establish? They established the International Zionist Networks under the name of the Israelite Universal Alliance. It was the combination of B'nai B'rith and the Knights of the Golden Circle that gave birth to the Ku Klux Klan. Now, mind you, we're talking about something that has started from B'nai B'rith, which we know had started from Leo Frank when they tried to accuse an American Negro for rape and of a white woman, and that white woman denied the claim, and many other people denied it. But Leo Frank stayed adamant to his testimony. The jury have found that his testimony was invalid, and therefore he was guilty of the crime of rape, punishable by death by hanging. That sparked off what we know today as B'nai B'rith, the ADL, the anything Jewish Alliance, Congressional, all of those different things. They were birthed from that. But if you look at that closely and you know the American Negro history, you can go ahead and tell that the white supremacy aspect has Jewish influence in it, and its origin, if anything. And we all know things grow from their conception and not from their inception. So again, having that historical concepts is understanding to know in this part. Are Jewish people successful because they don't have a victim mentality? No, most of the time they're successful because of historically what has been laid at their foundation, which was financial revenues gained from operating governments, operating trade, and operating slavery in America specifically. In America, one of the biggest things about the South was that they had the ability to pay those taxes. And in the American government at the federal level, the Treasury had over 60, at the height, they had 63% of its wealth was gained through cotton tax. And a cotton tax was something that was from the Negroes in the South farming cotton, and those plantation owners had to pay their taxes. And there was a statement that said that we don't need to worry about the laws that are made in the North because in the South we have cotton, and cotton is king, meaning that the ability to have what economic financial benefit in the chest is to be reigned supreme. Not necessarily what legislative power you're on, what political power you're on. They didn't really care about that as much as it was the economic value of it. What does that have to do with the title of the room? Well, again, the historical backdrop is necessary so that way you can have a poignant conversation to actually speak to it from a factual basis and not an emotional one. The reason that there was a conversation, and also there was an article that was written where Benaiah Barith, the ADL, had met with the KKK, and they had a conversation, and they didn't necessarily describe what it was, but they did record that they had met, and that the Benaiah Barith was invited to a location that was provided for by the KKK. I could put that in a jumbotron as well, but they don't have necessarily a mentality of victims as much as they have the mentality of being supreme. You talk about white supremacy in America. It's a concept that was created from these type of actions that created the notion that there was an inferior and superior version of people in America. White supremacy is a creation that was created. It wasn't supreme when you had looked at the plantations, because at that time it didn't need to be stated about white supremacy because they already had supremacy. There was Negro laws that had that the Negro woman would always be slave, no matter if a Negro woman was a slave, her child would be a slave no matter what, male or female, and that the progeny of that child, no matter where they go, would be continued in slavery, which meant abject slavery with no end in sight. The whole purpose of the secessionists was to remove themselves from going ahead and yielding to the North, which was making themselves more industrial, therefore not utilizing slavery as a form of economics. When they utilized that fact of going to the South to present that, the South denied wanting to go in that avenue because they said in the South, as the KGC has stated, and to be a member of them, you have to be sound on the NIGGER or the nigger. And you also had to understand that they had a role. And when they refer to the nigger, Negro, they're talking about property. So they never looked at us in the form of humans. And that was contrary to what the North was doing. Here comes the Civil War. Well, in the Civil War, it makes sense why most of the folks of the Confederates were Jewish. When you look at the hierarchy, not necessarily every soldier, rank and file was a Jew, but the hierarchy from Judah P. Benjamin and other assets that they had within the ranks were under the auspice of what we would consider what would that be called, Germanic bloodline, or they would be under the auspice of being a Jewish person themselves. A lot of those people came to that title because of the plantation benefit that was on the plantations. A lot of them were owners of things such as Levi Strauss and Company, many of those being plantation owners and users of such monetary benefits. Well, when you talk about removing that benefit from them in the South, losing to the North, and the North winning with the slave off the plantation, who sometimes had to run away from the South to go ahead and find freedom on the liberty lines of the Union, and then winning against the South, that created a stinging effect. Special Field Orders 15 sowed that stinging effect, and that sowed within them a certain type of hate and ambiguity, which is known in the South as the South shall rise again. Many people conflate the South shall rise again with the Dixie flag, but not necessarily with the understanding of what the purpose of the South was and its rise being what we see today. When you go ahead and speak about Elon Musk doing a Nazi salute in America, and you're seeing the
Bro, are we going to travel all around the world for 3,000 years, or could we like rest at some point so we can respond to you?
So
hold on. Who was that? Who was that just spoke? Wait 1 second, the farmer. Let me explain something real quick. Hi, my name is Robbie Blue. I'm the host of this space. We're all in here to speak, to try to get some understanding. I don't try to put cut on anybody's beliefs. I let everybody speak as long as they need to speak. Because if we're going to fix, if you're here to try to fix problems and try to get understanding, then we need to listen to one another. I'm not here to have anybody argue or jump off the mic or fight with each other, because that really is not. Listen, I want to get a show of hands. Who's here to be entertained? If we want to be entertained, we can yell at each other. We can use cuss words. We can try to see whose dick's the biggest. At the end of the day, according to the chart up there, my people have less than 1/2 or 1% of the wealth. Now, I was Googling as a fact check. It says that only 1% of the slave owners were Jewish. So even though there were some Jewish slave owners, here we go again with the 1488 crowd, the abadi. I'm pretty sure even if you try to say, well, only 1% of the population owned slaves, well, 1% of the 1% were Jewish. So that still means your Mayflower, cornbread eating family members still made money. It's not the percentage of people, it's the concentration of wealth. That's why these fuckers are idiots. You allow a handful of people That's to say white folks are dumb and their followers when you really think about it. And they don't want to tell us to shut up. But it's like you made a deal with the devil. You allowed the elites to basically control. And then once you formed your own country claiming religious persecution, you sit here and do the same thing. So now you've created Frankenstein's monster. It's like anybody talking about doing economic boycotts against the elite is like trying to get on a hunger strike with a grizzly bear before a hypernation. It's like at this point, it's like, to me, it's like the horse is already out the corral now. That should have, their chance to try to level things out was actually doing Reconstruction. They could have integrated us into the middle class, but people have never been here to promote humanity. What happened after 1776? And when they created the Declaration of Independence, I think it said life, liberty, and pursuit of property first. So you either were white or you were property. Everybody has a right to speak how they feel, but in terms of moving forward, we're either going to choose humanity and try to make the world better than it's ever been, or you're going to share the same fate of the Roman Republic. You're just going to do it on a global stage. In other words, you're going to outdo yourself this time. Instead of your embarrassment only being regulated to one corner of the world, it's like now, because of greed and cock measuring, the whole world's going to suffer. So I only ask because I'm trying not to get frustrated. And this is like a very sensitive subject to talk about. That's why I appreciate the other gentleman, because this is the order. And I'm going to follow him back since he's been respectful. Sim Breeze, he's right after LaFarmer. Then it would be Brother Talent. I see Cultivated wanted to come back up here. I'll bring her up. I need a co-host. I wish the other brother would have came back because he was supposed to have been the speaker. I don't see Zaire here no more because this wasn't my topic, guys. There was a gentleman who hit me in the back that's a friend of mine that wanted to kind of talk about this topic, and his homeboy was supposed to come in, but he came in kind of late, and didn't really expand upon it any further. But I hope he didn't feel like I was attacking him. But you're actually making a lot of the points that he made before LaFarmer. Matter of fact, I'm going to add you as co-host so I can have some help in here. But now we're not here to promote an agenda. We're not here to have personal insults. Let's just have a conversation. It's Saturday, wherever you are in the globe. I hope God blesses you and you prosper. And at the end of the day, you can make a conscious choice to choose humanity or be a lover of yourself. You can choose humanity or you can be selfish. And the only thing is people are going to either come up with some historical footnotes to justify being a piece of shit, or they're going to use religion, or they're going to use some racial statistics. But I don't know about y'all, but I'm tired of eggs being high. I'm tired of gas being high. You shouldn't care who goes to Ivy League school. It should be somebody that's qualified if you care about humanity. If you're going to practice white supremacy, then just tell the truth. Because I think if more people were aware of it, that's the case, then your head would be on my front doorstep. So you should be glad that we're here trying to talk civilly, because the minute everybody on the planet loses their fear of death, then the world changes. I don't give a fuck if you hit that bitch button, the nuke button. Oh my God, we're going to nuke the planet. Well, you might as well nuke it. You control all the resources. You invade other people's countries and rape the women and kill the women and buck break the men. Don't even get me started on my shit. You feel me? So my point is, I'm trying to be as civil as possible. I'm asking the Most High to temper me. But if anybody is gonna come on the stage and be impatient, I'm just asking you to understand that the American Negro has been patient, that people all across the world have been patient, and that's why it's very hard for me to trust white people at this point, because it's 2025 and people want to still practice racism when they don't need to. It's like, you're in power. Why are we having this argument? Because some trailer trash white dude is arguing about somebody who's wearing a suit. But at the end of the day, you're uncivilized cavemen that have benefited from a rebranding campaign. In other words, if you stomp your toe, you turn into Bill Bixby. That's when the truth comes out. People are prone to violence, and then they'll come up with these leaps in logic, LaFarmer, to justify murdering people. And that's what I don't want to see happen. Because if you sit here and you allow a police officer to shoot me in the head, instead of you not being a coward and just say the truth for humanity's sake, to say, hey, man, that's wrong. That's because the minute we stop applying the law blindly, that's when you lose morality. And the minute you lose morality, that's how you get all the other things. You're going to suffer the fate of Athens. So do you want to have a bagel in your mouth and complain about the Jews fucking you? Or do you want a bottle of baby oil and go out like the Greeks with a cock in your hand and a cock in your ass? Because that's what the Democrats are offering me as a black man, a bunch of baby oil and positive thinking about Martin Luther King and Jesus. And it hadn't put a dime in my pocket or created opportunity. It's just helped white lesbians and window lickers get leaps and bounds ahead of us. And then everybody else, because they're afraid after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, or just the war machine of the white man, in particular America as a superpower, it's put the fear of God in everybody's heart. We're the only people here who've stood up for justice and equality. Not even Hispanics did that. They were promoting LULAC so they could be considered white. Everybody was fighting to be considered white. Even the guy, Won Kim, whatever his name is, that when the Supreme Court challenged the 14th Amendment and allowed him to be a birth citizen, that's where that door was open. Because after the Civil War, a whole generation changed. And I guess his family had enough money. See, here we go again. Political prostitutes, inconsistency. So they said, okay, well, this Chinese guy can be considered a citizen. Do you realize during segregation, some Chinese people lived in white neighborhoods? They could marry into the families. They could go to the military academy. The only person you had special contempt for was the American Negro. So I apologize if somebody who's an American Negro trying to give not a dissertation to teach, we're just expressing ourselves so we don't pick up a rifle. We're just expressing ourselves because we're assuming everybody in here is civilized and has gotten to some point to realize that if we keep destroying the environment, Elon Musk can't build a rocket ship fast enough for you to try to go to Mars and jerk off. Good luck with all that radiation in space. If he was smart, you would try to take half those resources and fix the planet before you leave. But he's trying to make sure he leaves a planet that has a competitive advantage for white people, which it already has. That's the part that doesn't make any sense. It's like, ta-da, for dumbasses. It already has. You had the brother here previously showing, man, the New Deal gave Negroes a raw deal because, to Brother Talent's point, we were already boxed out of the American economy. So you create a whole bunch of jobs for white immigrants to come over here, benefit off our tax dollars, but you don't have the patience for us to speak. And it's not even about us speaking. People are on the stage. And again, I applaud the other guy's patience, but I just don't want this to turn into a troll space where we argue and it's Jerry Springer. And meanwhile, everybody better invest in oil. Because anytime they even tinker and put a foot in the Middle East, you know that's always the reaction. Because OPEC's going to make money, Putin's going to make money, everybody's going to make money with you. All you're going to have is a bunch of nigger jokes and excuses of why you had to be a degenerate piece of shit and raid the Capitol. Please, everybody be civilized. Because honestly, I've lost faith in humanity. And the only thing that kind of low-key keeps me calm now is realizing I got answers, I got understanding, I know where we are. And it's like, man, we're about to destroy everything. I even tell some of the people in some of those other spaces, I think, what about the Republic? I try to appeal to their white conscience. You're going to destroy the Republic. Aren't you smart? Be smart enough to study your own history and understand what happens when you choose emperors and understand what happens when you have political gridlock because of greed. This has happened before. It's nothing new. It's old wine in a new bottle. Aren't you supposed to be a Christian? Or you don't got enough niggas to lynch? You want them to normalize you using a bunch of foul language and you have the right to basically beat up police and act like a degenerate instead of you getting away from that poison thinking. I don't know, man. I really didn't want to host this space, if I'm being honest, because I didn't want to be accused of being an anti-Semite. When I say that, meaning I have a problem with white supremacy. I don't care who practices it. And I'm not going to judge you based on your religious belief. And I'm not a pocket watcher. I don't care how much money you have. Just please don't be Hitler. Please don't be Nero. Please don't be some degenerate that a woman's going to have to suck your dick to get a job, or you're willing to practice economic Darwinism and you're going to put everybody's safety at risk by deregulating shit, y'all. I don't know about y'all. Fuck all that DEI bullshit. I don't feel comfortable getting on a plane no more. Because you know what they're about to do? They're about to cheapen how they make the planes and the materials they use. Because you guys are greedy fucking cavemen that your greed makes your brain shrink. And this is just from a cumulative assessment because you've ran the world for the last 1,000 years and you've ran this continent for the past 500 years. So you're basically arguing with yourself. So to pick on Negroes or to tell us that we need to do something, some kind of way we're making you feel uncomfortable for just existing, it's like, nah, you got it all wrong, buddy. It's your own brethren screw you over. And then I have this 1488 crowd coming here. They use the word nigger. Then they blame the Jews. You know what I tell them? Well, nigger is your safe word. I hope the Jews fuck you balls deep. You beta bitch made. You know what I'm saying? Christian coward. If all you're going to do is complain about the Jews, I hope they fucking give me a radio station so I can piss your ass off. I bet you're controlled by the Jews. As a matter of fact, this is my profit split. This is what I got negotiated for, boy, because you created capitalism, right? I took advantage of my opportunity. That's the problem. You don't want me to have an opportunity, but you want us to try to hurt Jewish people for you. Even if there's some truth, there was a couple of Jewish slave owners, but what about all the regular white pilgrims that did it? What about the fact that our sweat equity created opportunity for you to have jobs, for your cities to flourish? You got all this cheap labor. So basically, you're like a deadbeat that's complaining that we won't pay the tab and pay the tip. So it's funny. So yeah,